Hello, Josiah, Stream.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Nothing much. I'm busy as shit at work. It's honestly been ridiculous. You're
a male stripper, aren't you?
Yeah, that's my night job, really. It doesn't take up that much time. Luckily, that's more of a passion than anything.
Oh, okay. Labor of love.
Yeah. Well, my real job is taking up time from my passion of male stripping.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the big struggle right now in my life. But no, I've been really busy. And honestly, I told my wife, I was like, you're lucky. You're lucky because my anxiety level for this election. Oh no, I lost Josiah, guys.
What the hell just happened?
I don't know.
That's concerning. It's very concerning. Okay. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was saying, I told my wife, look, okay, my anxiety level for this election substantially lower than the last one. All right. Now, I don't know if that's maturity or if it's confidence in Kamala winning, or if it's a lot of edibles. I'm not sure. It could be all three. But I'm it's starting to ramp up, though. It's really starting to ramp up.
Your anxiety is starting to ramp up?
Oh, it is. Yeah. I'm not looking forward to... Because the thing is, look, I've got my vacations planned. I'm not going to have to work during the whole week. Okay, so if the results take forever to come out like last time, I'm fine. I'll be zeroed in. All right, but it's going to be stressful. I remember this guy on Twitter. He's kind of a policy wonk guy. He actually ran for state house, I want to say, in Minnesota. His name's Will Stansel, and he he was running, and the night of the primary, he tweeted out something like, "This is stressful." That's how I'm gonna feel most likely.
Yeah, I sorry, I was responding to somebody in chat. Yeah, so I don't know what to say. I'm a cynic by nature. I was starting to be optimistic a few weeks ago. Now, not so much. David Plouffe, who is Vice President Harris's campaign manager, calmed me down a bit with an interview that he recorded on a podcast hosted by Puck, the newsletter, the political, kind of indie like news network. Like they're pretty reputable. They do a lot of stuff around the Hill. So that made me feel better. But seeing other people panic is raising my anxiety too. So hearing you say that you're anxious has me freaked out a little bit.
No, Josiah, it's totally psychological, right? Because I've seen the graph where it's like, oh, the vibes are immaculate, and then the graph, and then it's like the other line is all out panic. We're losing this. Oh my god! And it's like literally just a completely even polling. Like it hasn't actually been let's say abnormal, atypical polling in the aggregates. But I think that the reason Democrats are nervous is it's just trauma from 2016. That's all it comes down to. I think it's just like we just got burned as hard as you could possibly get burned in 2016. And I think that ultimately I guess it's good, right? I mean, it's, I want Democrats, I want them to have anxiety. It's serious. You should take elections seriously. And hopefully that does motivate people to get out and vote. I mean, what we saw in 2020 was a dual motivation. Both sides were very, very rabidly motivated to go out and vote. It ended up being a very close election.
What are you doing this weekend?
This weekend? Oh, that's a great question. I don't know, honestly. Just I'm doing my podcast.
I know what Josiah's doing.
So I'm flying to Vegas to canvass with Destiny. I don't even think it's a progressive victory thing at this point. I think it's just a DGG thing. I know Destiny's going to be there. It's interesting. Like I don't know why I didn't have the chat overlay up. Sorry, guys. And of course, because Hutch, heathen that he is, second time in a row, refused to link his shit. We don't get.
I did. What are you talking about? I swear to God, did I not?
Oh, you did. Fuck. Now I'm the asshole. Fuck.
Wait,
Fuck. Hutch was right. Hutch.
But I'm not seeing the chat though for some reason.
It shows you on there, but yeah, I don't see.
That's what happens when you do a podcast with a couple of boomers. All right, the tech issues start piling up. You know, Tim Pool spoke about this in his recent episode
In
of
his
his
farewell,
show.
in his farewell
He
video.
said it's all the employees' fault, all these IT issues. You know.
Yeah, but yeah, so I'm flying out to DC to or not DC, goddamn it, to Las Vegas to canvas this weekend. So yeah, you should come out, Kana boy. You should fly up.
I've never been to Nevada. It seems like an awful place. I'll be honest. You know, no offense to the people in Nevada, but
it's exactly the sales pitch I'm going to go with. That's part of my script. You know,
I mean, even the
I
history of
apologize
Nevada,
for you.
You know,
Okay, don't filibust. My point is, get your ass on a plane and come on out and door knock with us.
I'll see if I can. Honestly, it's been extremely hectic, but I'll try to. I'll try to volunteer as best I can. My friend actually reached out. He wants me and my friends to be not poll watchers, but like election night volunteers or something
you're a
like
stripper,
that.
so you're already a poll worker, if you know what I mean.
That's fair.
Damn.
Well, no, but he said something interesting, which was that he's like, yeah, normally we have, it's a bunch of old ladies and old men, retirees that kind of do 90% of your election volunteering. He's like, we need some big boys this time around. He's like, yeah, we're real nervous. We're nervous that, we're going to need people who are willing to confront a bunch of rednecks causing a ruckus. We're worried about some, agitation at the polls this year, which I guess could happen. I mean, that didn't happen last year in mass, so hopefully it doesn't happen this year. But early voting seems to have been going well, but maybe it'll be different on election night.
We don't know. I mean, it's been going well in the sense that turnout's been high, but I guess it's possible that voting patterns have shifted such that, the margins aren't overwhelming for Democrats. Like we say early voting is good because historically speaking, it's an overwhelming, medium by which Democrats vote, but that might have changed this year. That's the thing. Like I am just retreating back into my epistemic humility. That's why, like recently, for example, I put on Twitter, and I know Hutch responded to it, and I knew Hutch felt this way. But, I am open to the idea. I don't know if there's any data to support it, but certainly being claimed a lot, that Harris campaigning with Cheney is somehow depressing enthusiasm. Would you just wait a second? Let me get out of my fucking mouth, and then you can tell me I'm wrong. Would you just give me a second?
Fine, go
ahead. I'm open to that because it's such a common talking point. But I want to see the data, and I want to see this question being asked. And the closest thing I could find, and it made me feel better, besides Hutch, was Dan Pfeiffer's The Message Box. And he made our article he wrote from like 2 days ago, where he says there's a very data-driven reason why Harris is doing what she's doing, and it's very smart. And so it leads me to believe, according to these number crunchers, that there is no real risk of losing progressive voters to campaigning to Cheney. I'm sorry. Now, Hutch, go ahead, sir.
There's just no evidence. Like I liked our conversation with Crystal and Kyle. There are a couple things I wish I would have pushed back on a little bit more, and this was one of those things because she made the correlation equals causation argument.
Yeah.
That because we've seen the race tighten since she's touted the endorsement from Cheney, that this is somehow evidence that it was because of the endorsement from Cheney. Mm-hmm. And it's just a real standard open and shut case of correlation does not equal causation. Typically and Econoboy, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like you would probably know this too, but I feel like in every single presidential election, you see it tighten in the last month, every single time.
Yeah, directionally it could change. I mean, one of the things that I was listening to on the 538 podcast was the claim that they said, in the last couple of election cycles, we've seen that Republicans will tend to consolidate their support earlier than Democrats, and Democrats will consolidate very late, like within a week or two of the election, which is basically right now. So it'll be interesting to see basically the polls of the next 2 weeks if we do see a Democratic bump. We've already seen some polls that, I think Quinnipiac came out with a new poll that showed a bump. Now, part of that was a difference in sampling.
A bump for whom?
for Kamala.
Quinnipiac, bro, is a meme in this. Their swings
Oh,
are
I know,
so
but
wild. The last one they had
Yeah.
Trump +4. That was like a week ago, and now
No,
they
I
have
know, but
Kamala
it's
+4. It's just
again, it's because of the sampling, but you throw it in the aggregates anyway. That's what I'm saying. Like that might be the tip of the spear this last 2 weeks of Democratic consolidation, in terms of how we might see it reflected in the aggregates. And I think that's roughly correct. I mean, especially when you look at the 2012 polling. Obviously, 2012. I mean, that was 12 years ago, so it might just be a substantially different environment. But in 2012, Romney was up a couple weeks to the election, right?
Yep.
I mean, he was up, and many people were predicting Obama would lose. Obama outperformed his polling significantly on election night, even. And so it's
all of MAGA's hopes at this point hinge on there being a repeat of the polling error in his favor, the likes of which we saw in 2016 and 2020, and the betting markets. And then some favorable polls. The RCP's aggregate, for example, I think they have her trailing.
Which leans more conservative anyway.
Yes.
You should know.
And
most conservative of the aggregators. I should also say before we continue, people have asked, where's Pisco? He's going to be 5 minutes late, which in Pisco time probably means 15 minutes late. He will be here. Yeah. Somebody asked about the Twitter live that I had. So I talked with a Sitch and Adam friend for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was a good conversation. And no, that was just a Twitter Spaces, so it's not on YouTube. But getting back to the election. So Hutch, before you popped in, Econoboy was saying his anxiety was increasing.
Definitely.
My anxiety is there at this point. I would say I'm more anxious than Econoboy. How do you feel?
Definitely. I was just telling my chat literally like right before I joined, I said it started about 2 days ago. I haven't really been. So I don't know how anxiety manifests for you guys, but for me with election stuff, it'll manifest in these sort of waves. Like I'll just be going about my day, doing the dishes, feeding my pets, whatever. And then I'll just get a wave of anxiety, just thinking about the possibility of Trump winning and all of just the worst imaginable people in this country being emboldened by his victory is a very terrifying thing. So I think about these things and I just get these waves. And that really didn't start for me until like a couple weeks ago. Even when Biden was consistently trailing in the polls, I was just telling myself like, oh, he'll bounce up. It'll be fine. Like I wasn't really like stressed about it. But at this point, I would say that my anxiety is present on a daily basis. And it's going to be probably a fever pitch on election day. I think it's going to be my anxiety is going to be through the roof for sure.
This is where I'm struggling in a couple of ways. So remind me, Hutch, you were supposed to be there. Econoboy, were you supposed to do the Destiny election night thingy?
I don't really know what's going on with that. I haven't been told about anything or invited anything, so I guess not.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, I'm not the mastermind behind it, but Luke Beasley reminded me that a year ago I made the gentleman's commitment to do something with him on election night. But here, truth be told, I don't know what I'm going to do. Destiny, Luke Beasley, or if I'm just not going to do anything because I genuinely don't know how I'm going to be. Like, full disclosure, my emotional investment in this is not feigned at all. Like I really do admire the Zen stoicism of somebody like David Pakman, who seems to like, it's just like water off a duck's back. Like he's so chill. I'm not that guy. There's a reason that when I was obsessed with college basketball, and even as a Charlotte Hornets fan here in the NBA, it's brutal for us, but I get so invested in it. It's probably not healthy. And I don't know, man. And when I get anxious, I get very like I want to be by myself. Like I am a dead weight to everything around.
Valid.
So yeah,
that's
election parties
completely valid.
That it's always blown my mind that people do election parties because look, this isn't like the fucking Super Bowl. Okay, if my team loses, it's not like oh that sucks. I guess whatever.
See you next season.
Yeah, like
well, maybe in previous elections, but not the most recent ones.
Like
no.
It's such a high risk, high reward thing. And, arguably, depending on your political persuasion, high risk, low reward, right? It's just like the downside risk of this election is very, very high. And I think that for me, at least, I remember 2016, I was doing actually election coverage in 2016 just as a student journalist, but that's kind of besides the point. I wasn't in these parties, but I heard that the mood at these parties was unbelievable. Like it was terrible. And it's like, I don't want to commiserate if Kamala loses. I just want to be sad and alone for a while. Okay, I don't want to be at one of these parties on camera. That sounds risky to me. I'm already going to be live streaming myself, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, there's no telling what. It's just, man, there's just no telling. I'm not one of those people. Like, it genuinely takes a lot to truly upset me. But when I'm genuinely upset, I'm not a fake it till you make it kind of guy. Like, I'm fucking useless. Like, it's so funny. I've got friends of mine who say the best workouts they ever get are when they're pissed that they just throw up, 20 pounds more than what they usually do. I eat the barbell, like rage, like genuine rage, not like frustration, the kind of like hyped aggro shit that we get when we're sparring with MAGA, but like genuine rage and despair. They are disempowering as far as I'm concerned. And so, yeah, it's interesting. I guess my other question is, given that we're kind of all in the same boat in the sense that we're all anxious, how do you feel about MAGA's posturing? Or I shouldn't say that. MAGA's presentation. Do you think it's sincere? Do you think they're hyped and they're talking shit because they genuinely believe they're going to win? Or do you think it's like some sort of reverse psychology, psych bullshit?
This is a largely delusional group of people.
I think they are nervous, but they have to. I feel like with them, they feel this need to put on this really wildly confident posture. But they're sort of running the same playbook that they ran in 2016 and 2020. So in 2020, it was even more delusional because Biden's lead in the polls was, what's up, Pisco?
What up? You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
What's up,
Biden's lead in the polls. No, it's all good. His lead in the polls in 2020 was pretty sizable. And so the delusion that they were going with back then was like kind of laughable. Obviously, this year is much, much different. Most credible pollsters have it at about 50-50 odds, maybe with a slight edge to Kamala. Maybe we're talking less than a percentage point in all three Rust Belt states. But I think MAGA, on a certain level, I'm sure they feel nervous, but they're going to put on that confident posture and talk about the betting markets and talk about how he's going to run above the polls again, like he did the last two times. But I guarantee you, all of them are, because. Like if we go back to 2020, that was a traumatizing year for them because a lot of them just didn't know about the red mirage. They don't watch mainstream media and they're not connected in those circles. They had no idea that this was an utterly predictable phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And so when they went to bed, they thought like, oh, he's got this in the bag because the red mirage occurred.
Well, can we talk about that for first let's put a pin in that for just a second, because you just emphasized the second half of this that nobody's talking about, which is we're not going to know the fucking results the first night. And that's the other thing that's going to protract this anxiety. That's worth addressing. My question for Pisco, just joined us, is basically we're having a bit of a cope sesh while you're here. We recognize that Kamala can still win. And if you really boil down the nuts and bolts, she's probably microscopically favored at the moment over Trump. But that she could easily lose this. And so the anxiety is setting in. How are you feeling?
Yeah, so I feel anxious. I feel totally like not settled. But guys, that's what this thing is. This is a toss-up election. We can win for sure. We can lose. This feeling of anxiousness, nervousness, I'm sorry, it's not going to go away until, like Josiah said, we have a result, and that could be November 5th, 6th, or 7th. Like, we're not 100% sure. That said, here are some what I consider to be the most encouraging things that I've looked at. Number one, the scale of the anxiety, I think, is not proportionate to the polls. If you look at people like Nate Silver and others, and if you just look at the aggregate polls yourself, they are extremely close, not just in the national polling, but in the all-important swing states. It is not the case that we've seen this seismic cratering of support in the polls.
No.
For early vote and mail-in vote counts, I am encouraged by signs in Pennsylvania and in Michigan. What do we have in Pennsylvania? You have a margin building up of Democrat registered voters who have voted.
Some might call it a firewall.
Some call it a firewall. Now, that's not a guarantee of anything, but the size of the firewall, whatever you want to say, is similar in size already to what you're seeing in 2022, and it could get to 500, maybe if we're lucky, to 600,000 votes. So those are encouraging signs in Pennsylvania and encouraging signs in the voter turnout in Detroit. Everywhere else, it's early days. There's some signs potentially of Republican edge in registration, but registration, that's a lagging indicator. You shouldn't go by registration. And sometimes, in the early vote counts, you're seeing weird stuff out of Nevada, but it's early days. Remember that, and do not feel despair. Possibility is here for both sides, and we just need to seize it and keep the vibes up a little bit, because I've seen people way too down. Measure your expectations. That's my take.
So let's talk about the fact that we're probably not going to have a result for a few days. How are you all going to handle this scenario where it looks like Trump is ahead, kind of like it was in 2020, where Trump is ahead, but then, going into that, what will the next couple of days be like for you?
Xanax. I have a prescription for Xanax, and I will probably take them.
Will you be streaming at all, or will you be MIA for 3
I'll be
days?
streaming. I'll be streaming. I mean, so in 2020 I streamed, and I had like one of the highest concurrence I'd ever had. It was like 10,000 viewers at the time, and It was about 9 p.m. And I knew, I want to say it was earlier, like 8 p.m. And it was just obvious that we weren't going to get the results that night. And so I got off, and people accused me of like getting off because I thought that Biden was going to lose. But yeah, I don't know how late I'm going to stay up, but I plan on starting the stream pretty early in the day. And then if we don't know by 8 p.m., I'm not going to sit there and just, because my own anxiety is going to be nuts. And so I'd rather get off and practice self-care.
My guess would be that it would almost certainly take a full extra day of counting to know the results, which is to say that we would maybe know the results late Wednesday or early Thursday. I have a hard time imagining it'll take as long as last time, just because last time you had so many mail-in votes, right? And by all accounts, it seems like the number of mail-ins has dropped significantly. That just won't be as much of a concern. My understanding is that obviously one of the difficulties of counting mail-in votes is that they're mailed, right? You have to open them and sort them either through a machine or by hand, and it does depend on the state. So I don't think that'll be as big of a problem. Although, of course, depending on how close it is, maybe the 10% of mail-in votes that exist take a while to count, and those are what makes the difference. I'm not really sure, but I would expect it would be quicker than last year. My anxiety is going to be pretty high, probably no matter what. I do still think that Harris wins every swing state currently, but it will be marginal. Like, it might take a while for those votes to get counted. And
even Arizona?
Yeah, I think even Arizona, I'd be pretty surprised if it swung towards Trump. Obviously, people are saying immigration is going to be a really big deal, but I don't know. I don't really think so.
I think that's her toughest state right now. I feel like she's struggling the most in Arizona.
Probably, if she loses any states Biden won in 2020, certainly Arizona is the most likely one in my view. Most likely one she could flip is North Carolina, and I think she's going to win North Carolina. At least that's my current feeling of things. The difficulty right now is that last election cycle, the top line polling was pretty accurate. Like, it says that Wisconsin, Biden's going to get about 51% of the vote. It's about where he ended up. Right now, the top line polling shows many, many more undecided voters, right? It's like the top line polling is 48%. It's like, how reliable can you really predict based off the polls if you don't even have a top line that's a majority? Very hard to say, right? Because obviously third parties aren't going to be very significant. These undecided voters are going to funnel into one of the other candidates. But my assumption, I think, is that the polls are underestimating Kamala's support, and I think she takes away more of those undecideds than Biden does in 2020. So that's why I'm pretty confident in the results. But
you mentioned
her two worst states, just real quick, just right now, is Arizona. Trump is ahead in the 538 aggregate by 1.8, and in Georgia, Trump is up by 1.5. Those are the two states that she struggles the most with right now.
So you mentioned two things there: undecided voters and third parties. So let's talk about this for a minute. Obviously, we're all in consensus on Jill Stein and the Green Party. I think at this point, I've bitten my tongue for the longest time. I'm less so now. I think that I can say this because I'm not running for office, but to vote for Jill Stein in this election is just really stupid. And I actually have very little sympathy for anyone, like whatever reasons they wish to proffer. At the end of the day, I think where I'm at is whatever your single issue vote is, there is no single issue on which Kamala is not the superior candidate and Trump isn't the objectively inferior candidate, and Jill Stein will not become president. Joe Biden stands a better chance of becoming president again, and he's officially out of the race, than Jill Stein. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Biden gets more write-ins than Jill Stein gets votes. But my question is, to what extent do you think Jill Stein as a third party or the uncommitted movement will swing the election for or against Trump? Because I actually saw a report recently that there's some preliminary data suggesting that Jill Stein is actually screwing Trump over.
I saw the same. Yeah, I saw the same.
Yeah. So to what extent do you think these two factors will play a role, and how will they play a role?
I mean, my guess would be that it's not going to be very significant. I mean, I think, Muslim voters are historically Democratic leaning. And Muslim voters are kind of like Hispanic voters in that way, right? Where they're obviously a bit more socially conservative, but they seem to prioritize economic issues, or at the very least, they prioritize an inclusive party that isn't, racist against them, obviously, in the case of Republicans doing travel bans and things like that. So I think there's a lot of perception in the Muslim community that generally, hey, Democratic group. And I will say as well, and this, to me, this doesn't honestly make a lot of sense. But there is seemingly a perception amongst a lot of the proportion of uncommitted voters, or people who are really prioritizing that as a voting issue. There is a sense that Kamala is not Biden, and there's not a reason to attach basically the failures of the Biden administration with regard to Gaza to Kamala. I actually don't think that makes a lot of sense. But I also don't think it makes sense to vote against Kamala because of that issue.
Don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
One of the best outcomes if Kamala wins, oh my God, I really hope this happens too. It's like, we get to tell, I don't want to lump uncommitted. First of all, let me just say, I don't want to lump uncommitted along with everybody else who I'm about to go after. But the anti-electoral left, the ones that make it their entire personality to get on Twitter and tweet 20 times a day that they're on the left, but they're not voting Kamala. We get to turn around and tell those people, you are not a part of this coalition. We do not need you. We are not going to cater to you ever. So find your own movement. And I think that'll be really important moving forward. And it really needs to happen. And if Kamala loses, they're going to, of course, take a victory lap and give themselves credit for making it happen, when it'll probably be primarily due to a myriad of other reasons.
I'm torn on this, but I want to hear from Pisco first. Pisco, to what extent do you think Jill Stein and the uncommitted movement will impact the outcome of the election, and in which way will it affect the outcome?
I'm not super on the Jill Stein point. I'm not super scared of Jill Stein. To be honest, I think this is a question about, will Democrats be able to turn out their base and turn out people who are mad about Israel, Gaza, that kind of stuff. People, to the extent that I'm worried about the groups that you just mentioned. I'm worried about them staying home. I'm not even that worried about them going over to Trump. I'm worried about the lack of enthusiasm among that group, if that exists, and then problems with potentially young voters. So to the extent that I'm worried about it driving down turnout. I'm not necessarily worried about the convincing factor, but it would be really unfortunate if it would be, significant on the results. But yeah, I'm more worried about the enthusiasm and turnout game than I am about the genuine left-wing support for Jill Stein. Because I think that those people are kind of geared that way anyway, so to speak.
Well, you answered the Jill Stein part, but even if Muslim Americans or Arab Americans or the pro-Palestinian faction, even among white voters and things like that, if they stay home, that could be potentially outcome determinative, don't you think?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, is that with the margins this potentially close, I think that there are some weaknesses in certain of the Midwest states where it could be outcome determinative for sure. Yeah.
So on this subject, just to transition it and actually to a specific story in mind, and I actually sent this in the group yesterday. So obviously, I mean, I can't speak for everybody else's content, but for me, I focus on domestic and electoral politics. I don't comment on Russia, Ukraine, or Israel, Gaza for the reason that I've said before, which is foreign policy has never been, number one, my area of interest, or number two, my forte, either which way. And so I try not to speak about things of which I have very little competence. But obviously, one of the things that we hear a lot is that, particularly in Michigan, there's a serious risk of underperformance with this particular cohort, which could be outcome determinative. And with all this in mind, when I see a story like this, it fills me with more anxiety because it seems like an unforced error. So the Detroit News has talked about it. Harris campaign regrets removal of Muslim Democrat at rally, says he's welcome at future events. Has anybody heard about this? Because not that it's like top line national news, but it is making the rounds on social media. Has anybody heard about this particular story?
I've heard of it. I haven't looked into it though. So I don't know the details.
I do disagree with you, Josiah, for the record.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you said this when we were talking to Crystal and Kyle, that it was an unforced error for her to not ask that one representative from Georgia to come on the stage. Yeah. I just think that for a convention, the purpose of a convention is just a rah coronation. This is our nominee. Let's get excited. And if you're doing a calculation about a risk assessment in terms of allowing this or that speaker, it could have been potentially really bad for her campaign if that representative took the stage and then used it as an opportunity to push for specific policies that Kamala knows she's never going to act on, like an arms embargo or something like that.
Sure. Well, my understanding was that the original plan was to have her on. They vetted the speech and everything. She was going to make the endorsement of Harris. And then they stopped at the 11th hour. I suppose it's possible that there was something in the speech that was, too incendiary, but I'm sure you would agree as a general proposition. This was my point. I think you need a goddamn good reason to reject a pro-Palestinian Democrat and include anti-Trump Republicans. It goes to this, and I'm sure you would agree, maybe you don't. As a general heuristic, if we're assigning chairs at the table, the leftovers are what we give to the Republicans. You need a goddamn good reason, as far as I'm concerned, to give up a chair for a Democrat and give it to a Republican instead. Do you agree?
Well, no, I don't actually. I mean, like how many more votes do you think you're going to net appealing to never Trump Republicans or appealing to this like really niche uncommitted movement?
Well, I don't have the data on hand, but my understanding,
if you had to go with your gut.
If I had to go with my gut, I could say it's a coin flip. That's why so many people are freaking out about the lack of turnout for pro-Palestinian Democratic voters. I mean, if what you say is true, nobody would be concerned about this. It's a fucking gamble, Hutch. It is.
I mean, I don't agree with Hutch that it's totally obvious. I mean, look, like again, we have to, like in 2020, right? I think about 30% of the country identifies as Republican. And then Trump got like, I think it was literally 95% of those votes. Or I think Biden at the very least got around 5% of Republican vote in 2020. I mean, this is a very small, section of the electorate. That's about an electorate about the size of, Muslim voters and, bigger if you include Arab American voters. And so I don't know. I do find this to be genuinely difficult calculus. Now, to be fair, my opinion is just that I think that the bias in this campaign is like, if it's a polarizing issue, we really just don't want to talk about it very much at all. And I think that
it's a scared campaign. I couldn't agree with you more. The boldness that started it, which was where the excitement was palpable, that to me, that felt like good energy. And now it feels like scared energy. And maybe that's why, in retrospect, they're worried about that decision. I think it was a tough decision in the moment. And I think that even now, who knows what could have happened? We can play these what-if games. It was a tough choice. But they went with a choice. And the choice was, let's go for the middle of the road. Let's pivot to the center. That is what they chose.
And I mean, to be fair, I do think that Muslim voters will vote in proportion relative to basically how they've typically voted. Like, I think you'll probably see 60+% of Muslim Americans who voting for Kamala. Now, obviously, the big question is, well, do Muslim voters and Arab American voters broadly have a substantially lower turnout than they otherwise perhaps would have? And I don't know. I'm very skeptical on that. I mean, I think that from the Kamala campaign's perspective, they have a view, and I've seen this reported on, that there's many more undecided voters than we might think. And those undecided voters are more likely to vote for Kamala than Trump in the current election environment. Whereas the Arab American and Muslim American vote, that's probably just more stable. And I don't know. I just, I don't, to the extent that uncommitted is a thing that's happening, I don't see it in the polls, or like, I haven't seen much data to back up that this is having a material impact. So I think that's just the bet that the Kamala campaign's going with is, we don't have to care about these issues as much.
Well, going back to that one specific representative, by the way, like, I don't think the calculus, because to my knowledge, you guys said that they vetted the speech, right? But to my knowledge, I don't think the issue was with that Georgia representative. I think it was more an issue with the people that were presenting themselves as like leadership of the uncommitted movement, because there were a bunch of people that were repping that movement that were talking hella shit before the convention. And they were hyping up their presence at the convention, like, we're going to show up and we're going to demand they were taking a really hard posture. They were, I think, anticipating like 5,000 people to show up, and like 200 showed up on the first day. And then after that, like, initial pressure campaign really kind of failed, they started to do this thing where they were, really trying to negotiate some kind of a presence on the DNC stage. But again, I just don't think the convention is the proper forum for that. Like, there's nothing. Like, maybe you could argue that maybe Kamala could have done like a public appearance where they had some sort of like a roundtable, some sort of a discussion or whatever, like after the fact. But I mean, I totally understand people that were deciding who the speakers were at that convention having reservations about that movement, not necessarily the Georgia representative, but maybe they thought, like, is there a risk that she'll go off script and say something like, we want an arms embargo right now? Which, how does that fit into a convention?
That literally happened to the Republicans in 2016, where Ted Cruz submitted a speech that said it had a much more forceful endorsement than what Ted Cruz actually said on the convention stage, which was vote your conscience, vote for whoever you want, essentially. And Ted Cruz got super duper crazily criticized by Republicans for doing that. But that is a risk that at the end of the day, when they're on stage, what are you supposed to do? I think that Kamala does deserve some criticism. I think, the uncommitted movement, I think they had really criticized her because when she was in Michigan, they basically just said, like, look, can you just meet with us? Like, we just want to sit down with you. We want to have some time with you as the presidential candidate. She wouldn't even do that, right? I mean, that seems pretty bizarre to me. And so I don't know. I think that from Kamala campaign point of view, they just feel like any attachment to this pro-Palestinian movement, like if we can say that Kamala is pro-Hamas, or we can say that, she's like these college campus protesters or whatever, they're just really, really scared of that. They're super scared of that. And I don't see why, but yeah.
Do you place no responsibility on the people within that movement for the fact that Kamala would have been reticent to meet with them? Is there no kind of accountability in terms of
their accountability? Like, why would they be at fault?
Because
obviously. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I mean, obviously, I think you have to vet like who exactly you're meeting with. As a presidential candidate, I wouldn't want to just sit down with literally anyone. Obviously, just because it might just be a waste of time. But insofar as we understand the uncommitted movement to be somewhat organized, and we understand that movement to be concentrated in Dearborn, essentially, Muslim capital of the country, essentially, then I'm sure that you could put together a group of people, or you could say, hey, sure, pick one person. I'll meet with them one-on-one for 15, 20 minutes and we'll talk about these issues. That doesn't even have to be a very publicized thing, but at the very least, they don't get to say, well, she never even met with us. She won't even talk to us. And she is just ignoring us, right? Which doesn't seem like a good campaign strategy, if you ask me. I don't think this issue is actually so negatively polarized. People, when they're polled about the issues they care about, nobody says Israel-Palestine is one of their number one issues. It's not a very high salience issue, but it is high salience to a small group of people who may or may not be part of your Democratic base, right? And so I think that that's really who, you should try to appeal to just a little bit more, understanding that Jewish voters are in that same exact position. You have to balance these two competing groups of people who feel differently about this issue. But I think that liberal Jews who support Democrats aren't typically rabid right-wing Zionists, right? Like, I think that they're actually, they're not really, they're not those people, right? Like the Jews who vote for Democrats tend to take a more centrist, moderate view on Israel-Palestine. And so if you come out and had a centrist, moderate view on the Israel-Palestine conflict, express that to the uncommitted movement, that seems more optimal than to basically just try to, not really address it in very forceful terms, or, try to avoid talking to leaders of each side, just being, I guess, scared of AIPAC money coming in and, Jewish voters fleeing. That seems like an unrealistic expectation.
Here's one of the big problems, and I'll kind of view them in two ways. The first is any kind of concrete movement towards the towards a particular side, or in this case towards Palestine, is a huge shift, right? Because at this point, America's calling for a ceasefire. They want negotiations. So the next step to bring that about closer is going to be an open declaration or a movement away from the administration's position towards some kind of coercive action as against the Israeli state. And that commits you to what can you do to coerce them? Okay, you can threaten to withhold aid. You can attack them, embargo them. So, like, what are the steps if America's already at every public opportunity saying, we want ceasefire, we want ceasefire, we want ceasefire, then, and Israel, in the form of Netanyahu and the administration, is not budging, the only next logical step, in my opinion, is, I mean, you can't talk any more tough than you are, other than to say, hey, we're going to withhold aid. We're going to threaten aid. That is the logical next step. If you believe and nothing short of that is going to be concrete enough for the non-committed movement. And so in order to assuage them, what else could you do other than promising to threaten aid, military aid of some kind? And that step is a significant decision. If you're going to, and maybe it was the right decision, maybe they should have said that. Maybe Biden should have said that, but that decision is fraught with danger. And what other concrete step before that can you offer that would assuage the Palestinian, pro-Palestinian voter in this country?
Yeah. So a couple of things I want to say just real quick. Number one, to your point, Pisco, I don't think, again, to throw Vice President Harris a bone here, I don't think she can take that step. She's the sitting vice president. Joe Biden is still the president. It would be wildly irresponsible, perhaps even illegal, depending on what's going on with, the federal government's negotiations. I don't think she can and should do that. And it is unreasonable to expect her to, which is part of the reason why, I've said from the beginning, when people ask her, what would you do differently than Joe Biden? I think it's not even necessarily about Gaza and Israel. That question is fraught with peril when you're not talking about someone who used to be your boss. You're talking about someone who's your boss now and is still in the middle of.
I just want to pause you real quick, because I think that's really key what you just said, and about undermining the administration's position. But if you're not willing to do that, right? The only thing, we're left in this awkward position where the only thing that, as a Kamala supporter who's trying to assuage the fears of the Palestinian voter, that they can offer are two things. One, they could say she's going to talk tougher. Three. Two, she's lying because of this, and so she's being deceitful, or she has to be a liar. Or three, that essentially that everything she's going to do is toothless, and that she doesn't have the power right now to do anything. And I mean, like, there's really nothing. There's nothing short
of virtue signaling, and that is what I'm going to call it. Like having a pro-Palestinian speaker there, I call it virtue signaling in the sense it's not a meaningful policy change. I did pull up her speech that she was going to give. Mother Jones has it published. I don't think it's particularly incendiary, and she does conclude about, rallying together to defeat Donald Trump behind Vice President Harris. And again, I also want to say, to be fair to Hutch, I do recognize that it's risky. Of course it's risky. Unfortunately, I think as Democrats, we don't have the advantage that Republicans do of making quote unquote risk-free moves. They get to play the game of electoral politics on easy mode. And Donald Trump is the embodiment of that. He doesn't have to care at all about what he says. We're seeing minuscule shifts in the polls. There's very little by way of meaningful electoral consequence. Also, as John Favreau of Pod Save America pointed out to Hassan when Hassan was on Pod Save America, the fact of the matter is that there is a split coalition within the Democratic Party. We are comprised of America, that this coalition includes American pro-Palestinian cohorts and also American Jews as well. And unlike the Republican Party, which they get to, they don't have to have that calculus so much. They can, exclusively pander to Israel. Democrats have to be very careful, and one step in one direction risks losing support. It's a walk away from the other. I totally understand that. It just seems to me, in hindsight, looking back, I feel like there is a risk of not giving the Palestinian movement anything and just saying we're going to be better than Trump.
What they want, she can't give.
I understand, but they also, I think they also wanted, again, a speaker at the DNC and all this stuff, but I don't want to relitigate that. Go ahead to Hutch. You haven't spoken in a minute. I
was going to say that, so I don't want to mischaracterize what you said, Pisco, but when you said Americans want a ceasefire, is that what you said?
No, sorry. That America has made it clear, the country, the State Department, Biden has made it clear that the administration has said, we want a ceasefire. The next step, but we're not getting it, right? Because Netanyahu does not want a ceasefire. That's clear. And so the next step, and maybe even, obviously query whether Hamas has want a ceasefire as well. But the next logical step, if Netanyahu, which it appears to be, is the sticking point in these negotiations, is use some kind of coercive action. And I'm not trying to disrespect the Palestinian movement. What they want is concrete action. But that's precisely what Kamala Harris can't do, because the very next thing is, why are you funding this? If you want ceasefire and they're not giving you what you want, and you consider Israel to be almost like a vassal, or they should, at least, if they're going to do this war that we don't want them to do it on their own money, the next step is withholding that. And that is what they all asked for. And if you can't provide that, because to do so would undermine the administration and do something they don't want to do, or alienate people, because it's a big step that most of the country would imagine. The ads, they want to cut the aid to our biggest allies to fund the terrorists. Like, that is a big action that people who are saying it's so simple, just withhold, are not calculating that cost.
Yeah. I'm glad you clarified, because I didn't want to attack a straw man. Yeah. But just tangentially related, I just want to talk about, because this is a claim that we hear a lot. I think Crystal said it in our conversation, where I hear a lot from that crowd. They express this idea that Americans overwhelmingly favor a ceasefire. And that's true at a very surface level. So like, when you poll Americans, like, do you want to see a ceasefire in this conflict? People overwhelmingly say yes. But that's kind of like, when you ask an American, like, do you want to see an end to this war? 99% of people are going to be like, yeah. The Harvard studies, the Harvard surveys that come out, they go way deeper. They clarify their questions. They add more nuance to the questions.
More granular.
And what we see from those questions is that it's true that an overwhelming majority of Americans favor a ceasefire, but an overwhelming majority of Americans favor a ceasefire only after the hostages are returned. And so the Democrats have to factor that stuff into their policy decisions, their campaign platforms in the case of Kamala. And the other thing too to consider is, what if the calculation, and I think this is almost certainly the case, what if the calculation within the Biden administration, also within Kamala's campaign as she's preparing for a potential presidency, what if their calculation is that Netanyahu is stubbornly defiant and just will not bend to their pressure?
Of course, it won't be successful under Netanyahu, and it certainly won't be. If it will be successful, it will be successful after Netanyahu, either after the election, or and you're going to start having a problem in Congress, because Congress, Speaker Johnson is going to call back a session and start impeachment proceedings for denying congressionally approved aid and be like, this is going off of the precedent of the Ukraine, the perfect call, which, by the way, it's not applicable for a lot of reasons that we don't need to get into. But it would be a shit show. You could lose Fetterman, right? I almost think there could be a shrewd businesswoman, ruthless businesswoman approach where she could have picked Josh Shapiro. I know this is so right now I'm being very cynical, but I think that might have given her some cover, even though I love Tim Walz, to be a little bit more pro Palestinian in some ways. But it's a tough position, and because who she is, she's the vice president. She cannot, if Biden is fixated on a particular policy, she cannot change that. And if she comes out against Biden and starts problems, it's over. So she is between a rock and a hard place. She's just fucked.
I totally agree with you. I would say that this is just a perfect textbook example of a no-win situation. There's nothing that she can do that would be a quote-unquote win. And so the calculations I'm sure she's making in terms of her messaging is like, how do I cause the least amount of division within the party as possible going into this election? And I think that probably played a significant factor in her decision-making process regarding who got to speak at the convention, because you don't want the headlines the next day to be, convention speech and ignites like an inter-party civil war. You want it to be like, oh my God, Bill Clinton's speech was amazing, and oh my God, did you see that musical act? And oh my God, look at the crowd size. So I mean, I'm
because it wasn't a good speech. Sadly, I was disappointed in President Clinton. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Wait, you thought Bill Clinton's speech was bad?
I did, well, not bad, but I was I have said from the very beginning, I think that Bill Clinton is the best rhetorician in the Democratic Party.
Communicator.
I think he's better than Obama. And when I saw this, because I'm thinking, do you remember the 2012 nomination speech that he gave for President Obama? Hutch?
Oh, I didn't watch that. No.
Oh my God, that is the gold standard of speeches. And so I was shocked at how aged and withered Bill was. Now, he's had some good, he's been out in the stump in Georgia and North Carolina where he's been better, but his low energy, very low energy from President Clinton. I was
He's
stunned.
older now.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
And the party's moved past him, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I still maintain you in terms of speech making, with all due respect to Obama, Clinton is the GOAT as far as I'm concerned.
I actually thought his speech at this convention was really good.
Bro, go watch the 2012 one. If that
okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair. But I mean, like, if you remember his part where he talked about the difference in job creation between the parties, that was like a really.
So 2012 that was when he bust that out. Like that was the first time we'd seen that stark contrast, and it's been a shtick of his in most of his public speeches. Yeah, he's kind of the numbers nerd. He's the econoboy of President. There you go, econoboy. You're being compared to President Clinton. There you go. But no, I also want to say too, to close the loop on this again, to be fair, and this is part of the reason why I understand that a lot of people don't like the fact that the four of us are pretty cautious about things like predictions and declarative statements, because the truth is, I think, number one, there's a level of epistemic humility here. And number two, as a general heuristic, professional campaigns employ very smart people. Like it's easier, obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, to go back and even just to have a subjective opinion. Like, it is my subjective opinion. If you held a gun to my head, I probably would have permitted, and I'm blanking on her name, but the Georgia state representative to speak at the DNC. But I recognize that there are very good reasons why they were so cautious about doing so, because they knew it was not a risk-free proposition. David Plouffe, who is running the Harris campaign, is a very smart and effective man. And so the decisions that they make, like, and not to throw Kyle and Crystal under the bus, because I also enjoyed my conversation with him, but when people say, "Oh, that's fucking stupid," where they're like, I'm not committed to that. I can't speak that, because I understand that these campaign professionals who have won multiple elections are making shrewd decisions based on information we don't have. That's why when Plouffe had his conversation with the guys from Puck, I felt a lot better about it, because he's like, I understand people are freaking out about the public polling. He's like, but our internal data, we've had this as basically a 50-50 election for weeks, if not months. So we're kind of ahead of the curve on this. Like, any anxiety we've had, we're weeks past it. And so I guess that's just what I would say to everybody out there who expects firmer convictions or firmer predictions, and why they're so few and far between here, is because we also recognize that these people know what they're doing. Not to say that they can't make a mistake or lose, but they're not idiots. And anybody want to dispute that or disagree?
Yeah, I don't think they're stupid. I think that it's hard. It's hard though as well, because it does seem it's difficult, because it does seem radically counterintuitive sometimes, the decisions of candidates. Now, sometimes you can dig deeper and explain it. Like, you could say, like Kamala is going to Texas, and a bunch of right wingers are like, that seems stupid. And, Trump went to New York, and they're like, that seems completely ridiculous. Why are they doing that? It's like, well, they're probably just making a play for either chamber, right? Like, Kamala's probably making a play saying, hey, the Senate race is closer than the presidential race. Maybe I can put all right over the line. Yeah. Trump says maybe I can gain seats in the House in California and New York. I mean, this seems like pretty explainable. But then, like Josiah said, there are some decisions where, I don't know, like it's just not clear what the right answer is. And, you might have a strong view one way or the other. So it's difficult to say which which approach will end up working out. It might just be such a close election that everything, you could ultimately blame any particular victory or loss on any particular thing if the election is close enough. Oh, if they had been a little bit more in favor of, the Palestinian, Palestinian rights movement or something like that. And if Trump loses, the Trumpers are going to be like, oh, well, if mainstream media wasn't just completely sold and if they didn't steal all these votes, it's like, okay, I mean, I don't know. It's like this election will probably be so close that any narrative could make sense directionally, but, it's a billion different things that go into it.
So, also, I mean, Americans have agency, like it's just a plain reality that there's a significant percentage of Americans that saw what we had to deal with during the Trump years, and they want that back. And I just feel like some people treat campaigns like they're so straightforward. Like Cenk, I feel like is like really.
Yes, Cenk is a great example. Yes, the certitude.
He's really, really vocal about if only they did this, should be up by 10 points. And I have serious doubts that any candidate, even Michelle Obama, that would be up 10 points against Donald Trump right now. The reality that we've been living in this country for a good portion of the 21st century is we are a bitterly polarized nation, and it is going to take time, and it's going to take maybe something like a generational political talent to maybe galvanize enough support to get to like 60-65% again, like what we saw in the early portion of like Obama's presidency. We just don't live in that time anymore. It's like from now on, moving forward, I feel like whoever's president is going to be stuck around 40% approval, no matter what they do. And I don't really know how to fix that. I don't know when it's going to change, but it's really difficult to contend with. And to Josiah's point, I think that when you look at the Democratic Party in the last 6.5 years, it's really obvious that they have a lot of competent people working on that team that are winning really crucial elections all over the country in tough races. The Pied Piper strategy of putting money into like the extremist candidates, people criticize Democrats for doing that in 2022. They elevated people like Masters and Lake, but they were and Walker, and they ended up being proven correct. Like that was a calculation that ended up, it was a risk that was worth taking in it, and it won them control of Congress.
Yeah, that's something else that it's so easy to get lost in this. And that's why these conversations are really helpful, I think, also for people listening, because it's important to remember, it's easy to forget. And obviously no election is virtually identical to the one that preceded it. We're not saying that. But it is important to understand that under Donald Trump, the Republican Party has an L streak like you would not believe. Again, 2018, the midterms, Democrats swept. 2020, Trump lost the presidency, the second incumbent in 40 years to lose the presidency. 2021, they lost the Senate runoffs, turned a red state, cleared out 2 Republican senators and swept with 2 Democrats. The 2022 midterms was effectively a draw because, yes, Republicans took control of the House, but by a much lower margin than was expected. And we expanded our Senate majority. The 2023 off-year elections was one Democratic victory and overperformance after another. And the few special elections, if I remember correctly, in 2024 have also, I think there was a mayor of a high-profile city, and I'm blanking on the fucking name of that city. You guys might remember, but
it was in Alaska or something. Yeah.
Was it was it? Yeah. I think you guys have referenced it a couple of Live and Learns ago. Democrats won. That doesn't mean that we can get complacent. Trump is kind of a wild factor or wild card, but and I know Hutch visibly gets triggered in this because I've watched your videos when people talk about Democrats don't know how to win elections, and you scream into your microphone.
My God.
Yeah.
No.
We're actually better at winning elections for the most part than Republicans are, and Republicans have enormous institutional advantages. So that's, again, part of the reason why I'm going out to Vegas this weekend to canvass, even though probably should be creating content, but I'm going to go out and knock doors, and I think that the 3 of you should join. So just you keep that in the back of your mind. But let's go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say Newsweek, which has in recent years turned basically into a right-wing rag. Am I right about that? I feel like it's gone
right wing and left. Yeah.
I think Newsweek has gone hard right in the Trump era, and they reached out to Hassan because they knew that he was a reliable go-to guy to just shit on the Democratic Party. I almost think it might be worth it to watch that little listen to that audio clip of him, because basically everything he said in that, every single sentence, when you deconstruct like every point he was making, triggered me more than the last thing he said. And he opened it by saying that Democrats are really good at snatching victory from the snatching. Yeah, right. And it's like, bro, how are you going to say that in the middle of a 6.5-year stretch of like really solid wins? Like, talk to me when you start winning elections. Talk to me when you start seeing like Green Party members elected to Congress or whatever.
Yeah, really. A couple of things here. So I just saw this in chat, which I know this guy on Twitter. But I'm surprised he's just saying this verbatim. Only fact X. I hope Trump wins. Democrats must be punished.
You're not punishing Democrats by doing that. The Democrats you think you're punishing are going to be fine. They're going to get a job in consulting, or they're going to start a podcast career, or they're already like fabulously wealthy. Like you are not punishing them. You're punishing like women who can't get abortions in 1 out of 3 states, or 1 out of 3 women in the country not being able to get an abortion.
Right.
Yeah. Of all the things, Pisco, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah. Remember those words. Remember where you were when you said them. I can only say, if you're saying that the Democrats must be punished for Gaza and for what's happened with Israel, the most important thing at this moment that they need is time. You need to wait out Netanyahu. And if you're going to give them the runway to start immediately and begin wars, additional wars, maybe even a war with Iran, you are dooming an entire class of people beyond what they've faced already. And so I just want you, if it comes to pass, to remember where you were when you said that. And we'll remember it too when we continue to see carnage that goes unmitigated for the next 4 years. And as Israel, as it may, if prompted, continues to expand into areas of the Middle East that it should not.
I think these people are liars. I really do. I don't think it's about Gaza at all. I think if it wasn't Gaza, it would have been something else. I think these people are just there's always like a small percentage of the country that take this position of like
Brown and Joy Gray.
Just burn it all down.
I do think there are some people like Brown and Joy Gray is a good example of someone who I don't trust. Whatever her red line is, she would just move it one way or another. Obviously, genocide is a perfectly reasonable red line. Of course, when you have a candidate. We have 2 candidates. One you think is backing a genocide. The other one, the genociders believe would enable that genocide further. So you should probably try to keep that person out of power. I think if it had not been Gaza, she would have voted against. I mean, she made it clear. Remember that discussion she had with Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball before October 7th. Brianna Joy Gray was going to vote against the Democrats, I believe, because it was the $15 minimum wage.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, it's hard for me to take any of this seriously and suggest that it's just virtue signaling. Or
also think critically. Think critically. If who's going to be a listening ear? Who can you negotiate with? If you are the pro-Palestinian left, it's not going to be an open door. If Trump is there for 4 years, you're going to have. It may be longer. Put aside all the concerns about democracy. You will have a callous, unthinking, unhearing machine. A machine that, by the way, is backed by all these Israeli donors and these pro-Israel donors, the likes of which you've never, ever seen. Backed by Netanyahu. They're backing him for a reason. He's going to give them everything they want and more. And you're going to have no one to talk to the administration. And you're going to be stuck with an administration.
That doesn't matter to them.
That it's going to wreak death upon that area more than is happening now.
That doesn't matter to them, because for a lot of these people, they have utterly given up on liberal democracy, and they have these lofty notions of accelerationist ideals of like revolution. They think that, they still to this day, there are people that are convinced, even though we had Trump, he won in 2016, didn't get them any closer to their goals. And yet they delusionally convince themselves that if Donald Trump comes in and breaks the system, from the smoldering ashes of American liberal democracy, they can build a utopian like communist project. And it's just, these people are so fringe, it's ridiculous. And they have such an outsized presence on social media. It's just, it's wild.
Why do you treat Gaza like it's just another issue? It's a fucking genocide. Again, even if you believe it's a fucking genocide, the fucking genociders have a preferred candidate. That's just a matter of fact. Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, Netanyahu, they all prefer Trump. Unless you think they are genuinely stupid in addition to being fucking genociders, they presumably want Trump for a reason. They believe that there is a meaningful difference with Trump in power compared to Kamala. So if it is a fucking genocide, and if you oppose the fucking genocide, you should probably oppose the interests of the fucking genociders. And so when they want X, do Y. You lose the debate. There is only one rational explanation. There's only one rational conclusion here. I can't make you vote. You vote however you want. But what I can tell you is that you will always lose the argument when it comes to Kamala versus Trump. The fact that Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, and Smotrich don't look at this as a coin flip, they have a preferred candidate, means if you really want to thwart them, give them the opposite of that preferred candidate, which is Kamala. It's not Jill Stein, because she will never in any timeline in the multiverse win the goddamn election. Again, vote however you want, but don't pretend you have a valid argument. You don't. Vote for Kamala.
If it's really about genocide, then why do you get to pick it? Like, how do you pick and choose like which of these conflicts you want to focus on? Because according to internal U.S. State Department or U.S. Defense numbers that got leaked, the United States intelligence estimates that over 100,000 Ukrainians have died during this conflict with Russia right now. And I'm saying the Venn diagram of people that are online saying that Hamas should fight to the last man, and the people that say that Ukraine should just allow Russia to annex parts of their country is a perfect circle in my mind.
Well, yeah, because obviously, I don't know. The reason I disregard that kind of thing just because they're making a calculus. They're saying, why are you treating this just like another issue? It's a really serious issue, right? And it's like, well, obviously, I think a lot of people would say that the conflict in Israel-Gaza is a really, really serious issue. But it's obviously just going to be a matter of how you weight these things. And it's not clear to me that you should necessarily prefer one to another. You know, for instance, right? I would say the biggest thing, like if Earth was a TV show, like the environmental villain of the TV show would just be climate change. Like, we're all fighting over these things, and in the background, creeping closer and closer and closer every year, it's climate change, right? And we're just kind of unaware of it, right? And I would say that's a really, really big issue. It's just clear to me Democrats are substantially better on that issue than Republicans. Largest climate investment in all of American history, you know, arguably world history, because of how pivotal America is. Like, you know, Biden did that. You know, how do you weigh that over the Israel-Palestine conflict? It's very difficult to, because they're very different issues. How do you weigh the fact that Kamala's promised welfare expansion that would lift millions and millions of people, especially children, out of poverty? You know, how do you weigh that over what's going on in Israel and Gaza? The answer is that it's obviously just not clear that you could necessarily weigh them against each other. Of course, you could, and you could come up with a moral framework by which you would weigh them, but that's very complex. It's very subjective, very intuitive. Some people are just going to have different intuitions in that regard. And so I don't know. I don't like to judge people for saying they're, oh, you know, my number one issue is Israel and Gaza, for me to just be like, oh, so you don't give a shit about children living in poverty? Like, that would be kind of a stupid thing to say. And so there's probably a more thoughtful opinion you could have, other than just like, oh, you guys just don't care about this issue. It's like, well, no, I mean, obviously we have, clearly a different level of care for this issue than you do, but it's not to say it's not a serious issue or we don't care about it. We're just weighing things differently. And like Josiah said as well, I mean, there's a very clear argument that insofar as you want to, do any sort of harm reduction strategy, the harm imposers in your mind, the people doing the harm, they want Trump to win, right? So, I mean, in theory, you would want the opposite of that to happen if that's what they want. So, and obviously Jill Stein's not going to win. So I don't know. It's a pretty dumb response.
So this person in chat with questionable taste in men says, I think a lot of people believe the only time that the masses have any political powers with their vote. And so some people are hoping that they can put pressure on the administration that has so far not done enough. I hope that most people are reasonable enough to vote Democrat at the end of the day. Well said, person with seriously questionable taste in men.
It's right. And if you're being like, if I'm being real, if I'm reading the tea leaves, I think the Walls pick in a way is a bit of a signal that Kamala is bound by Biden, and she just is. And
wait, the Walls pick? I'm sorry. What do you mean?
I think Walls is a signal to the base in the world that Kamala intends to govern from her own perspective, from her own vision, not to just go along with what the consensus is necessarily going to say, except to the extent that she's going to win the election. And I think that by having a kind of bold vice presidential pick, she's trying to signal that she will be her own person. She will have her own administration. And I think that if she had complete freedom to speak openly, she would in a way that you would like. But I think that Biden is.
Did you see Walls on Jon Stewart on that subject? Like just on the notion of picking him. Like he's so fucking good at retail politics, man. Like to me, he is, going back to Clinton here, not to sim for him, but you know, Clinton was really, really good at retail politics. And I think Walls is unlike any we've seen in years. I mean, he's
not the best debater, but he's really good at I feel like it's a kind of currency with politicians where he's really good at coming across as authentic. Like it's kind of a meme, like, oh, would you want to get a beer with him? Like if I was still drinking, I would want to get a beer with Walls. And I feel like he just exudes that energy. But yeah, he's good at that. Not the best at debates, though.
I want to go skeet shooting with him. I want to go skeet shooting with him. I want to hand him wrenches as he works on a 57 Chevy, you know. I don't know.
Well, there are these rare people in politics that it is very rare, I'll say, but it does exist. There are regular people who sometimes become politicians, and Tim Walz just really seems to be one of them. I mean, from the very start of his political career, he was a school teacher that the DNC didn't want to fund because they're like, well, he can't bring his own millions of dollars into the race. He's just a school teacher. And that was his base before becoming a politician, just being a school teacher. And there was that story that came out after he got selected where this guy has like almost no personal wealth. Like he has like his house that he owns, and he has a couple pensions from when he was in the National Guard and when he was a teacher. And that's it. You know, this guy needs the VP paycheck. Like this is a regular dude running for VP right now. And I think, you know, that's all to say that I don't think, Hutch, you mean it this way. But I don't think he like seems to be very authentic. He just seems to just be who he is, right? Like that's who he is. I don't know if he's trying to seem a certain way or anything. He just seems to be an authentic person and a regular guy.
No, yeah, I feel like there's a difference between intentional authenticity and just authenticity, and I think he is authentic. Right. I think
like Trump going to McDonald's as
an
example.
Exactly.
Fuck me. Oh my God. Just the straight simping over this shit. So a couple of things with our remaining time. So what about former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly? You know, he didn't do it in front of a camera, but he allowed himself to be recorded. So we have the audio clips. Everybody's talking about this, talking about Trump's fascination with Hitler. What do you guys think about this? We'll do this rapid fire. What do you think?
He loves Hitler.
I think it'll be another one of those things that MAGA say it's fake news and it won't move the polls at all. That's my assumption.
Well, I think dude, if this was 10 years ago,
yeah.
Can we just, you know, if this was 10 years ago,
or if it was a Democrat now, if it was a Democrat today,
or if it was a Democrat now, can you just imagine? Let's rewind the clock to 2012, and then a former chief of staff who was a decorated war veteran, who was a retired Marine Corps general,
whose son died serving this country,
went on the record with New York Times and told them, yes, I think Barack Obama is a fascist, and I think he has authoritarian instincts, and we shouldn't let him anywhere near power. This story, you guys, I don't know, some people in chat may be young. This story 10 years ago or in 2012 would have been like seismic. It would have been like the Hillary emails on crack. It would have driven media cycle for maybe even longer than like a month. It could have been like a multi-month discourse about this. But because it's Donald Trump and because he's lowered the standards to such an unreasonable level within the conservative project right now, it's just, I don't have cable news. I'm told that they did talk about this quite a bit, but I'm just saying it would be front page news in every city across the country. And that standard is simply not applied to Donald Trump.
I think the issue is that and I think this explains a lot of why we don't see a lot of movements in these polls. And it is what leads me to have a more radical view with regards to how we should organize social media and you know, public media in general. It's that people are just siloed nowadays, right? Like this is a story that just does not really penetrate the sort of base of Republican support at this point, right? Like if I were to ask my MAGA family about this story, they would say one of a few things. They would say
he's a rhino.
They would exactly. They would say, "I don't think that's true. That doesn't actually. That's he. He never said that." When presented with evidence or already being aware of the story, they would say, "He's a rhino. Of course, he thinks that Trump's against the deep state." And like people who are listening to this might say, "Econoboy sounds out of touch. He sounds like he doesn't talk to MAGA people on a regular basis." This is my whole family. Okay,
Yes.
this is my entire white working class family.
Yes.
Okay, that we're talking about here. This is the exact type of demographic that pushes Trump over the edge. And this is what I hear. When Marjorie Taylor Greene got elected, I said the same thing. I said, people think she's crazy. She's the average Southern white aunt. That is what she sounds like. She sounds like an average member of my family who just happened to get elected to Congress. I mean, that's how crazy a lot of these guys are. So I don't know. It's unfortunate. That's why I say it won't move the polls very much.
So the foundational underpinning for 99% of MAGA is this firm conviction, not just a belief, conviction that Donald Trump is unfairly persecuted by the deep state, who are conspiring behind the scenes to remove him from power because they're afraid of his populist movement.
Much like Jesus.
Much like Jesus and many other martyrs, yeah. And from that foundational belief springs everything else. And so a story like this is just impossible to penetrate that bubble, because they'll come up with whatever they need to come up with. I got into a little argument on Twitter where a guy said New York Times LOL, and I was like, okay, here's the audio recording, and the guy just found a way to like stick to it. And so from that, it turned into, no, he didn't say that, and then it turned into, oh, he's just mad that Trump fired him. And so it's just, you can't get
right.
This is a serious challenge for this country moving forward. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to pierce that bubble, but it's a big challenge, because they live. Destiny's been talking about a lot lately. He's absolutely right. These people live completely untethered from reality, from objective reality. And there's no simple solution to this. I do think that if we beat Trump in November, it doesn't all go away, but a lot of this does. If you can take out the head of the snake, and I think at that point his political career will be over. He'll be facing down Jack Smith, not in one but two different courts.
I disagree.
Your
so
optimism.
Hard.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. But real quick,
you don't think a lot of the problems go away if he loses?
Nope.
Nope. There's so much to unpack there. We'll have to probably take that.
Okay.
So this one's for Pisco. DOJ warns Elon Musk that his $1 million giveaway to registered voters may violate federal law. What the fuck is going on with this guy, Pisco?
Yeah, so I recorded one of the things that I recorded with Stephen. Will be analyzing one of the laws. So there's laws against offering things of value in exchange for votes, either voting in general or voting for a specific party. And likewise, there are laws for a similar thing for registering. And so it's pretty, in my opinion, inarguable that he violated one of those. And you'll have to watch the discussion with Stephen to see which one that is. This one also might have, because entailed in the giveaway is a requirement that you register. But there's another one that is even more clear, where I think he violated the law, and it's a criminal law as well. So,
so is he stupid? Did nobody advise him that this was illegal, or do you think he thinks that, much like I do, Pisco, is Elon Musk proving me right that he doesn't think Merrick Garland has the balls to bring suit against him, because Merrick Garland, of course, is a legendary pussy?
I think he well, first of all, I don't agree with your characterization.
I know, exactly. That's what I'm curious.
But I think he has some exceptional lawyers, at least for some of the cases that he works on. And so I don't think it's for a want of having access to good lawyers, but he may not have consulted them, or he might be cynical and saying, hey, whatever case they bring, if I'm able to get Trump elected, it's going away. And so there could be a lot motivating it, or they could just be unaware, or they could be thinking that it would be such a political looking charge that, I don't mind taking the risk. But either way,
dude, Elon does this shit constantly where it's like he gives the game away. It's so obvious that he thinks he's very clever. Like when he took over Twitter, for example, one of the things that social media platforms had to grapple with in the last like 10 or so years was how they classify a view on a video. Facebook got in a ton of trouble with advertisers because it was revealed that Facebook was counting like 0.5 seconds as like a full view. They were basically artificially inflating their views to attract more ad money. And this affected the entire social media climate. And so what was one of the first things that Elon did when he took over Twitter? He went back to that thing. So I used to make a decent amount of money on Twitter ad revenue because the program was really small. It was like a small amount of creators. So the pool of ad money was like very vast. And I noticed right away that my views on my videos like doubled or tripled. And so it was obvious that he went back. Like, he was just in a meeting. He was like, you know what if we take that down to like 0.5 seconds and we can get way more views? Like he just thinks he's so clever by going back on a lesson that all these social media companies learned years ago. And yeah, I think like him doing this stupid fucking giveaway that is just so obviously like, it's got to be like, right. I don't know. You're more versed in the law, Pisco, but how far up to the line does this go? Because I know that you're not allowed to incentivize people with money to register them to vote.
Yeah, like I said, so all right, I'll give the game away. This is the one I think is absolutely clear, and I think that he broke the law 100%, in my opinion. When he said, hey, we are having a talk, it was like some kind of rally, right? And a rally is a thing of value, right? Just like you go to a Taylor Swift concert, right? And he even said, you don't have to pay. When he says you don't have to pay, that's an implicit acknowledgement that the thing is worth something, right? That you otherwise would have to pay to hear Elon talk. So he says that, and he says, the only thing is you need to sign a petition, and you need to have voted in this election. That is, imagine if I were to say something like this.
Or be registered to vote, right?
No. For this one, it was to have voted in this election. And if you watch
shit.
Yeah, this was different. This is not the $1 million giveaway. This is come to the concert or come to our the rally to hear me talk. To hear me talk, you don't have to pay any entrance fee, but you need to have voted. Okay, you need to vote it in this election. It's saying in exchange. Imagine I said something like this: "Come get your $500. I'll be giving away $500, but in order to do that, you need to have voted in this election." Right? Obviously, that would be what we're talking about. But it's no different here, right? It's a thing of value. This kind of has risen its head before when Ben and Jerry's was giving away like reduced price or free ice cream to people who have voted already. Well, what are you doing? You're giving something of value, something free, an ice cream cone, to someone in exchange for them having voted for a vote. It's an offer of something of value for their vote. And so, yeah, that's, in my opinion, as clear-cut as can be. And if you look at the video that it's going to come up, you'll watch me and Steven analyze. I think that's as clear-cut as possible. And I think it's even more clear than the registration one.
How insulated would he be from any kind of liability? Could he just pass the buck to like people that... What's that?
He tweeted it himself personally. He even clarified, by the way, you need to have voted. There was a double tweet. Yeah.
Gotcha.
If you last thing I'll say on Elon Musk before we change the topic for a couple more times would be, according to reports, the Republicans basically outsourced their ground game in Pennsylvania to Elon Musk, and reportedly it is not going well. So unless anybody has anything to contradict that, there's something to take heart in.
What wasn't it the case in Nevada that it was like they internally discovered that 25% of the door knocks were fraudulent? Like people were just taking money and like
I'd not heard that, but that's hilarious.
You didn't hear about that? That was news like 3 days. Yeah, they did an internal audit of the ground game in Nevada, and what they discovered was potentially up to 25% of the people that they hired just marked it down that they knocked on the doors, but they never did, which is just perfect for an Elon operation.
So this one was one I thought would interest at least 3 of us, Pisco, Econoboy, and myself. So new Marquette Law School poll. National survey finds approval of U.S. Supreme Court edges upward, but 55% disapprove of the court's work. There's some pretty staggering figures here, including of those who say the court standards are very high or high, 89% are in favor of enforcing an ethics code, while 91% of those saying the current standards are low or very low are also in favor of an ethics code. So
it wouldn't be a live and learn episode without a boring conversation about judicial reforms.
I'm just going to throw this out there. Yeah, a large majority, 90% support enforcing a strict ethics code for the Supreme Court, and a slightly similar figure also support term limits. So I'm just going to lob it back to you guys. With numbers like that, do you think that
what
Democrats?
do you want me to say? Like you're.
Do you think Democrats should campaign on Supreme Court reform?
We're not breaking any new
that?
ground here, Josiah.
I'm done. It's new stat. I'm just asking if that persuades you at all or no.
It's still a very low salience issue, right? So even if it
It's low
was,
salience.
yeah, it's not worth spending a lot of time on. But if they win, they need to do Supreme Court. There's just a lot of things that if Democrats win, they need to do if they have a trifecta in government. Supreme Court reform is obviously one of them. And I wish, obviously I wish they would go super far with it and, add members to the court and have, these riders and bills excluding it from court review and, have, just basically democratizing, truly democratizing the legislative process. But they're not going to do that. At the very least, hey, do an ethics code, do some mandatory recusal stuff, term limits, right? Stuff like that. I mean, this is all, the appointment process could be reformed to be more nonpartisan. They need to do these things, right? It should be a priority for any democratic government, not necessarily for campaigns, though.
Yeah, I should also say that before I toss it over to Hutch, that Lindsey Graham went on Sean Hannity and openly wept. They're killing us. They're outspending us, 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 1. They're killing us. Please donate. And one of the things that he was making in his sales pitch was this idea that, we need a Republican Senate for for Donald Trump, because he says there could be a MAGA majority court. And it's possible that not only will Alito and Thomas resign, which I think is probable, right? Yeah. But Justice Sotomayor might tip over. I mean, she's an older woman, a diabetic who has to walk around with a medic. So, guys, I want you to think about this. Fear is a motivator. If you let Donald Trump become president, American voters, and you let Republicans take control of the Senate, American voters, Donald Trump will not just have a 6-3 conservative supermajority. He could have a 7-2 supermajority with 6 of the 7 appointed directly by him, a MAGA supermajority court.
And I will say, I'll say this now because I'll be saying it in the future if the results don't go our way. If Trump wins, and or if we just don't even have the Senate, like if we just lose the Senate, which is likely, Sotomayor should be shamed into resigning, just like Stephen Breyer was. Right? We do not know how long it'll take to get control of the Senate again. It could literally be 6, 7, 8 years in the future. For Ginsburg, it took what was it? It was like almost a decade, and she just died in office before she had the combination of a Republican Senate and a Democratic Senate and a Democratic president, because she was just stubbornly not resigning. So
I'm not even confident Manchin would go along with that. I feel like he would be like, "This is beyond the norms. I can't support this."
Bro, look, obviously, thank you. I'm glad somebody else said it. No, hang on. Let's talk about this. I also wanted Kagan and Sotomayor to resign just reflexively. But the truth is, and I've been thinking this for months, there's no guarantee that Manchin or Sinema would go along with it. We like to assume they would, because
you need one of them.
We got 51 votes, so I mean, we could lose him. I don't know if Sinema would not.
I don't know, bro.
Be on board with
I don't know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but no, go ahead. But I want to get to something else before we have to close out, because there's another big story that supposedly is coming.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, Econo Boy, get the final word on this, and then Hutch can talk about the upcoming news.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, obviously, if you don't have the votes for it, don't do it. But I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if, again, to their credit, right, people like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski have been more consistently willing to vote for Democratic judicial nominees. Even Romney voted for Jackson. And look, I think especially if the context of these appointments is just refilling the 3 seats on the Supreme Court that Democrats have, I don't think you'd have that hard of a time getting the votes for it. I mean, it could happen, but you've got to count the votes beforehand, obviously. But no, I think in an ideal situation, Sotomayor absolutely resigns if either Kamala doesn't win or the Democrats lose the Senate, because of course that's what should happen, right? That's just how our system works. Anyway, Hutch, what were you going to say about the upcoming news?
There is a potential October surprise coming. So Laura Trump reportedly sent emails to right-wing media people to let them know about an upcoming story. And so you see accounts like Charlie Kirk and Jack Posobiec preemptively accusing Democrats of doing like AI stuff, which is ridiculous. So the fact that they're trying to preempt this lets you know that this is a pretty big story. There's been a lot of really bad stories that have come out about Trump in the last year, but none of them have prompted people like Charlie Kirk to make kind of like a preemptory statement like that. I thought maybe it could be so there was a producer for The Apprentice who wrote like an op-ed like 5 months ago, and he claims that while no, it wasn't Omarosa. It was a producer. It was like one of the like big producers. Wasn't just a low level staffer. Producer for The Apprentice who said that while Trump was on mic, he had a lav mic activated. It's on camera. He during the first season of The Apprentice, he openly mused when there were 2 final contestants left. One of them was black, and his team was saying, maybe you should pick that guy. Apparently, according to this producer, Trump said, will America buy an N-word winning this contest, like with a hard R? And so I thought maybe like, okay, maybe those tapes come out. And if those tapes come out, I do think that would be much worse than the grab him by the pussy thing. But it's being reported that Donald Trump allegedly, and a bunch of different journalists are running this story down and calling people for quotes. Donald Trump allegedly groped an underage teenage daughter of a major donor at a semi-recent event. And
oh my God! Actually,
and allegedly it's on video.
Wait a minute, isn't there? What did I just see somebody? Okay. I'm not joking. I've been seeing like the tweets about this, but I also saw a video earlier today. Follow me on this. Fox News' Britt Hume. Is it Mark Halperin? Is there a guy named Mark Halperin? Halpin?
Yeah, he's a former Democratic strategist, but a lot of Democrats don't like him now. I don't know much about him.
Okay, there's a reason. There's a reason I'm talking about this. Hang on one second. Let me play this. So this was shared like 21 hours ago. And I'm curious if this is it. Okay, can you hear this?
These last 2 weeks are going to be filled with things like this. And I can tell you, without going into detail, that I've been pitched a story about Donald Trump now for about a week that, if true, would end his campaign. And there's all sorts of things like that flying around. I'm not the only one who's been pitched it.
So I wonder if this is it. This was like a day ago.
Probably, yeah.
Nah, I wonder if it's it.
Probably, yeah.
I just can't imagine anything ending his campaign. I think this motherfucker is truly bulletproof.
Bro, if they had him on camera groping a minor, I'm sorry that you're not going to lose any MAGA people, but undecided in independence. Okay,
it'll come down. I think if that is true, it's going to come down to the exacting nature of the video. Okay, because I could see a scenario where like you don't see Trump's hand, it's like arm around the waist, like plausible deniability, and all the MAGA people are like, oh, he just grabbed her by the waist, oh, all of a sudden you're gonna throw a guy in jail for doing that? What's weird about that? I mean, yeah, we did say that Biden was a pedophile for smelling the hair of underage girls and, you know, being a little too close to their ears, I guess, but whatever, our standards are very much different for Trump. However, dude, it's like, Josiah, if there's a video of Trump like grabbing a 15-year-old by the chest or something, that has to break through, right? Like,
I don't know. I just don't know. Come on.
Has to break. He can't keep getting away with it. There has to be something.
Whatever. I'm too fucking cynical. Pisco, what about you? What do you think?
No, that'll matter. If he's patting a minor, even if it's just him patting her on the ass, that is going to break through with the small percentage of people that are undecided. They will break overwhelmingly for Kamala, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that like hard evidence. I don't, and I'm gonna buck some of my fellow left people. I don't think that the connection to Epstein as it is now is enough for people.
Well, there was a story that just broke about that. Did you hear about that?
No. Oh, yes, I did hear about that.
Okay.
I did hear about that. And that's just breaking.
Yes.
But it's not, just to be clear, there is a groping allegation that is now public, but that's not the one allegedly in video, and it's not allegedly involving a minor. I don't remember who it was. But
it was a model.
It was a model at the time.
It was a model that was dating Jeffrey Epstein, and she says that back in 1993, he took her over to Donald Trump's apartment, and he straight up just started grabbing her boobs and butt, and yeah.
Yeah, that's different than the allegation that someone says, I heard, and look, this is not confirmed at all, but someone says, I heard there's a video of him groping a minor. and that's all. I mean, that's like here. That is hearsay of an unnamed source from someone who said, "I heard someone say something." So yeah, that's not confirmed. Why is my mic adjusting the volume? It's so it's
Going
so
up and down,
annoying.
It wasn't
Yeah,
doing it
that's
until just a second ago.
that's so weird. I'm watching it do that.
You sounded
Wow.
fine until
Okay.
a few seconds ago.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that, guys. My bad. I'm just gonna keep my hand here. But you asked me. Sorry, that's different than
You think
what I think it would change minds. I think that if it's the video of him like groping a minor, and I mean like in the sensitive no-go areas, not the Joe Biden like getting a little close and touching shoulders and whispering in the ear. Not that. What I mean is like fondling of private areas. I think that would change things, and I think the N-word tape, if it's true, would change things.
I don't know if the N-word tape would change much. I'll be honest. I'm a little bit more skeptical. Dude, look, he was on camera in 2016 saying he likes to sexually assault women, and that
there was wiggle room there. Like he was, I mean, I was obviously bullshit, but he wiggled out of that by saying it was locker room talk. It's something else entirely. If you hear him with a hard R,
what if he's like, this is locker room groping, or like, I don't know what the fuck he's going
to
do.
No, but we're talking about the if we're talking about the N-word with a hard R, you don't think that's going to be hugely consequential in Georgia or North Carolina?
It's not that I just don't know about that, because you're balancing multiple different things, right? You're balancing a very negative, polarized environment where there are a lot of racists who just don't give a shit about that, and there are a lot of people. Look, we both know that if there was a video of Trump, like absolutely definitively, like confirmed by everyone saying the N-word on camera, hard ER, all this kind of thing, in the context that you just mentioned, we would see creator after creator and Fox News anchor after Fox News anchor say, "Oh, forgive and forget. Oh, whatever." We'd see every black conservative on the fucking planet, including Tim Scott, including all these people saying, like next rally of Donald Trump, every black elected official who's a Republican right behind him, still endorsing him, not giving a fuck, and then the polls don't change
Mark Robinson.
I think you would see record black voter turnout. I think you would literally see record black voter turnout, and I
hope you're right.
Arguably the most important voting bloc for Democrats.
Wait a minute. See, Oob here says hard R Trump would absolutely change the game. It would increase his support.
I mean, I don't doubt that at all, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, there's, reportedly there are, more black men than women, but reportedly there are some black men that are on the fence about Kamala. And I think something like this would absolutely change the game. I think she would win by 3 or 4 points in Georgia minimum.
I think that the type of people who would be who are convincible by such a scandal are, I think, more likely to not care about him saying the N-word, but I don't think there's really a huge group of people who would be like, "Oh, yeah, he grabbed a 15-year-old by the boobs. Who gives a shit?" Like, I don't think that's an opinion that really exists. I think most people are going to be like, "That's an insane thing that Trump did," and he ends up getting
Roy Moore almost still won his race after it came out that he was grooming 14-year-olds.
That's what
that's
saying,
Alabama.
Man.
That's Alabama. But that's Alabama though. That's Alabama though. I mean,
that was a huge swing in votes though, right? So like Alabama's like a +20 state, ends up going to a Democrat marginally, and then on a national, like if Roy Moore was like the presidential candidate, he would have gotten 40% of the vote. It would have been a Reagan-like victory for the Democrat. And so Trump, I think he has a cult of personality. And so that's why I say it just depends on the evidence. I think President Sunday in the chat was like, "Oh, he's had all these sexual assault allegations." There's never been a video.
President who in the chat?
President Sunday. Yeah. President Sunday, Mr. President.
There's never been a video, and to the extent that people have accused him of sexually harassing or assaulting them as minors, there's never been hard material evidence, right? And so if there's such a thing like that exists, I just find that would almost certainly break through. It would lead to Trump, maybe he only gets 45% of the vote or 43% of the vote, but that's enough for a Democratic landslide, right? So that would be a big difference in the.
So what do you guys think hurts him more if it's real? Hard R or groping?
I think the hard R.
Groping. What? I'm shocked.
I think because listen,
I agree with Pisco.
This is my prior, and I'm sorry my mic keeps doing that. I'm sorry. My prior is that if Kamala were to win 88% of the black vote, I think she would win the election. And so I think anything that drives the black vote up or changes its composition in favor of Kamala, I think wins the election.
Okay, here's the opposite question. Hard R or groping a minor? Which one increases his support with MAGA? Which one?
Oh man.
Which one does MAGA like more?
I honestly think like both, but not for the reasons that people probably.
And I've got to follow up. I'm sorry.
I think it'll be because MAGA will they will do the cope of like, oh, it's AI. I think they will 100% just be like, oh, it's not real, it's fake. Yeah. And that will just harden it will steel them. It will embolden them.
Would either of these, which one, both, or neither, would get these to commit Adam to voting against Trump in the upcoming election?
Don't talk to me about Adam Friended.
Oh man.
Would either of these things motivate Adam to say, you know what, I'm voting for Kamala?
I'm voting for the actual R word, Kamala Harris.
I think both. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, I think if either of those stories came out, I think even he would be like, yeah, I can't do that.
Would it be an unequivocal, or would he have to include some sort of dig at Kamala?
Oh no, there would be like 15 caveats. But I do think like even that would probably be too much, I think.
Trump could call Kamala the N-word on stage in a debate, and Adam would say, like, he's just talking like a normal American. You guys are worried about all these woke issues.
No.
100%
I think. Look, Trump. Adam does have to, because I think he called Kamala retarded. I think that was like he's like, I think she's actually retarded, right? And so
did he actually say that? Wait a minute.
Adam is a sexist? I'm saying it right now. That is my allegation, and I believe it. It's my opinion.
I thought I heard him say
my
something
opinion.
like that, of course. But anyway, the point is he has to weigh, like, he thinks that Kamala is like actually really stupid. I've at least heard him say that before, right? And so it's like, okay, well, does he think that, like, in Adam's mind, it's like, what would he think would be worse? Like a guy who's, I guess, like now provably, definitively racist, or a guy who's like a pedophile? I mean, certainly I would say the pedophile thing is going to be much more motivating, I would hope, to anybody's vote. Than saying the N-word, right? Like, if we're just like weighing what's the worst thing to do, to grope a minor or to say the N-word one time. Like, well, obviously it seems like groping a minor would be worse, but
well, the red pill guys are going to be like, this wouldn't have been a thing. This wouldn't have been an issue 1,000 years ago. Blah, blah, blah.
Age of consent in Japan is 15. You know what I can say is that Trump is structurally
Why is your microphone doing this? I don't
know. Structurally,
for emphasis.
Is it really that bad? You guys can't understand me?
I don't know. We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just goes up and down. And it goes like,
I don't know. Sorry. Structurally, Trump's a pedophile. Structurally, he's structurally a pedophile because he's already like kind of hanging out. Why? Okay, I don't know what's going on.
Joe, when you next time you're at Peace Coast, fix that fucking microphone. Like, it was perfect until 10 minutes ago. What you like, jostle a wire?
It's the Windows setting for the volume on Windows that is going up and down.
Basically, I'm noticing in the background, is that a stuffed alpaca? What is that in the background?
That's I've been calling it a camel, but it's is it a camel? It's a llama. It's a llama. It's not a anything phallic. People keep saying it's like
it's
looks like a penis, but it doesn't look
rather
like
phallic.
It doesn't look like that.
Yeah. No, but I don't know. I mean, Mark, look, the last time this happened, I mean, my bias is to say that this is a nothing burger. It's not a big deal. The last time we heard talk like this, it was the Mark Robinson leak, right? And that actually
but Mark Robinson's not deal. Trump. Listen, I want to be very clear.
I'm a black Nazi.
I think the things that Donald Trump just moonwalks through, even in 2024, would sink most Republicans, even though I think, again, the standard for behavior.
I'm a pedophile. He can't survive that.
You all have said, listen, I'm at this horror movie, okay? I've been through too many sequels where the monster gets away at the end. You all are entirely unjustifiably optimistic in the American people. I'm actually embarrassed. All three of you are so convinced that either of these things would kill Trump's campaign.
I think you guys have fully deluded yourself with the Teflon Don stuff. I think it's like I think it's to a comical level that you guys legit think that if he was on tape saying the hard R, that he wouldn't pay a price for that.
Look, don't get me wrong. No, just say it. Don't get me wrong. If Trump was on tape saying the hard R while groping a minor, he would still get 40% of the vote. He would still get 40% of the vote.
Here's the question,
right? But
You
he
guys
would
are
lose substantially if he did that.
You guys are complete hypocrites because here's the ultimate question: if Joe Biden were in the race and he was on tape saying the hard R, you guys would go for Joe Biden, and don't act like you wouldn't.
Oh, I would 100%.
Yeah, that's right.
No, but that's
I'm
one
just
thing.
saying,
Wait a minute.
I don't judge MAGA voters for like if they like his policy and don't give a fuck about his character. I just wish that they would just stop lying and they would just
That's a
acknowledge all the
ridiculous-
crazy
Yeah, but
shit
you would
he
make
does.
him feel if it comes out that way. If it comes out that he said that, you're going to make him feel really bad for voting for Trump.
Wait,
even
what'd
you say,
though
Pisco?
their policy. Yeah,
Pisco,
Of
what'd you
course,
say?
yeah, like yeah, of course, yes.
What'd you say, Pisco?
I said that if
We
I
couldn't
said that
hear you.
if
Can you
Trump says
speak more close to the mic?
if he says the hard R,
Oh,
he is
Jesus.
going to. Can you guys hear me? Yes
Yeah,
or
we can
no?
hear you. We can hear you.
We
Okay.
can hear you.
So listen,
I'm like
here's
yelling.
That is not
Here's the
an
thing.
issue.
Here's the thing. The thing is though, these things might increase Trump's voter share among Republicans. Some of these never Trumpers might be like, well, shit, if that's the case, and gravitate. I don't know, man. Joking aside, I think my cynicism is really like deployed at this point. I have a hard time imagining anything getting through to these motherfuckers. But yeah, this is big news. Did they give any sort of ETA about when we could hear about this?
Well, it should be in
Hey,
it
who's
should
they,
be-
Josiah? Who's they?
well, like
People
it's
breaking
not
the
just
story.
it's not just randos on Twitter. They're saying it's people that are like connected politically. Like one of the guys that was talking about the chatter about this worked for John Kasich. He's just like obviously he's followed by Bill Kristol. So it's not like just complete randos. I mean, obviously right now it is entirely hearsay, but I feel like it's more than reasonable to believe that there are journalists right now that are in fact reaching out to people for quotes, that Laura Trump like sent out an email warning media pundits about this. Like why else would Charlie Kirk tweet what he wrote?
What about this third option?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, real quick. It just occurred to me in all seriousness. What if it's something that's not salacious, but what if it's in like a filmed admission from Trump that he lost the 2020 election or something, or some sort of like, you don't think
Zero
it could
impact. Zero impact
No.
on the election.
you don't
That
think
doesn't
like any sort of unambiguous, anything related to the big lie or January
Nope.
6th? Like you don't think
I
that's
don't-
what it is, or you think if that's what it is, it would have no.
If
It
that's
would mean
what it
nothing.
is, it'll have no
Neither.
effect. Conservatives have already said their original defense for Trump was he has every right to pursue every legal avenue, right? Which is kind of almost like a character neutral thing to say, and I think they'll just say the same thing. I think that the reason, so I said earlier that this feels like the Mark Robinson thing, and I don't think it's because whatever this is will necessarily be big enough to end his political campaign. It does depend on what the story is. However, the thing about the Mark Robinson thing was that it was not a nothing burger, right? It was a thing that was real and it was crazy, right? And so people are talking like this about this story about Trump, which makes me think, okay, it might just not really have a big impact on the polls, but it sounds like it will be a big story no matter what it is.
Trump
I'm
also had a
really
Nude
curious.
Africa account.
Yeah. No, I tweeted, did Trump also say he was a black Nazi?
Okay. Yeah, well,
you know,
he might have
that could be it.
can I just say, like, oh wait, Harris just was asked directly if Trump was a fascist, and she said, "Yes, I do believe he is."
Good.
Good.
Base,
Oh,
as
she
the
has
kids
so
say.
much cover to
Base.
say that. She has so much cover to say that now that Millie and Kelly are on the record saying it.
Yeah. If
She
there
should
was a
also-
Trump gay porn leak, he might lose, or it might help him.
That would for sure like really damage him with MAGA.
If we had like a Google search of gay porn,
If there was video of him fucking a guy, then that
it would have to be a
that
video of him engaging in the act because they're not going to believe.
Yeah,
Absurd.
peace. I
He might be the bottom hutch.
I feel like he would
Might-
lose 15% of MAGA if he was the bottom and about 5% if he was top.
I agree with that assessment. Yeah.
You know what?
I think
you
this
know what
I think this
does?
will be a big story. I think it'll happen before the weekend.
I think we're really wanting. I think we're really wanting a big story. I think we're hoping. for
We're coping.
You should
I don't
expect
know.
something. You should expect something in the next week, unless these journalists chase down the story and they decide not to run with it. But there are multiple journalists that are chasing it down, and if they're reaching out to Trump for comment, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that journalism works is that you usually contact like the target
Yeah.
of some kind of a story like last, right? So
Well, what
Yeah.
I'll say is if nothing comes out, if there is a video of Trump groping an underage girl, that shit is going to come out. Like there's no way, I'd be shocked if nobody leaked something like that. So if nothing comes out, it just tells me that, maybe truthfully there was just nothing to the story, or maybe it just wasn't as what wasn't quite as salacious as that. But if it's something serious like that, how would that not get leaked? You know what I mean? Like if you're sharing it with all these journalists, like one of these guys would leak it almost certainly, right?
Bro, we didn't even like, okay, so I realize you're joking about the gay porn thing, but like honestly, if Donald Trump was caught on camera fucking a guy,
It's not gay porn.
It could be the best thing, gay revenge porn. Then this could be the best thing to happen for, like, it could make this country so progressive because like the MAGA movement could all of a sudden just become like super open-minded about that because they're so attached to Trump. So we got to think about the silver linings here.
So
About
what you're saying is
he's always said he does well with the gays. So
what you're saying is if it turns out that Trump has a secret gay sex tape and also wins the popular vote but loses the Electoral College, we could have even more robust LGBTQ protections in America, and we could abolish the Electoral College, all as a result of a single election.
It's like what happened with that streamer recently. I can't remember his name. There was a streamer recently where it came out that he had done OnlyFans gay porn like three years ago, but he had so much clout that he got like tons of support from like FaZe Clan people and like kind of like more reactionary leaning kind of people. So I'm just saying there's some parallels there.
Do you think it's a Diddy tape? You think Joanna is right that it's a Diddy tape?
A Diddy tape? Can you imagine?
I was talking to my wife about this, and I originally heard a comedian say this, and I was like, man, like that is true. Like that is really tragic. I was like, imagine, if Trump wins, right? Like imagine what he gets to say he stopped the first female president twice. And it's Donald Trump that can say that.
Donald
Like, the worst guy possible.
Zero.
Imagine how much it must suck being a woman. You're like, dude, not only did the guy that stopped the first female president twice, was it the same guy? It's also like the most sexist, most horrible person on the fucking planet.
I've had this exact thought. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I mean, obviously he's horrible, but
folks, this was a lot of fun, hoping and coping that there will be some sort of political silver bullet for the Trump campaign to drop in the next few days. I hope Hutch is right. We'll
not
see
me.
what happens.
I'm not. It's other people claiming. I'm just.
No, I'm sure that the profits that Hutch has relayed to us are right, and that'd be.
Wait, you hope that Trump groped a child?
Wow.
I hope
Gross.
I hope that if there is a silver bullet for Trump's political career, that it is brought to light.
No, this is what you have to say, Josiah. I hope that if he had, that it would come to light. That's
what I said. If there is a silver bullet for Trump's political career, I hope it comes to light. Yes, precisely. Exactly. I know what I'm doing. So yeah, this was fun, guys. God, let's see. Is next week. How many more of these do we have before the election?
One. Guys,
wait,
get everyone to vote.
Wait, hold on, really quick. I wanted to have. I have not voted yet. Have any of you guys voted yet?
I've not yet.
No.
Wait, you guys haven't fucking voted? We're the guys telling people to vote.
Hey, we're too busy screaming at people trying to get them to vote. We've got plenty of.
Don't worry about me. You think I'm not going to vote? I'm going to fucking dance to the ballot box.
Hutch says he's a conscientious objector. He's not going to vote at all.
No, I can't vote in elections because I think it would impact my coverage of politics. And so on principle, I just don't.
True, Mr. Let's not call you Sitch. Let's call you Mitch from now on. Mitch. Wait. I'm going to come clean. All right.
Why wouldn't you say Hitch? It's right there.
Oh, true. Because there's another Hitch. You can never be Hitch, Hutch.
I will never be Hitch. That's true.
You'll never be Hitch. Wait, you can be Hutch though. You're a great guy. I just want to say, in all truthiness, I voted today because I filled out my ballot like a few days ago and I made the tweet, but I only sent it in today, so I'm not that much better than you guys.
Vote for, motherfucker.
I can't tell. No, I voted Dem across the line.
Good.
And
not a single Republican, viewers. Not a single Republican. Just D all the way.
All D's.
Yeah. Guys, I was gonna say, because we do have in theory our last show before the election could be this next Wednesday.
In theory, it could be our last show.
That's true. We got to do something to, like around the election. Like I know you guys are. I don't know if you guys are busy at the election, whatever party with Destiny or something, but we got to do a show like maybe the Monday before. Like I don't know. We got to have some time closer to the election.
We can do something a couple of days before. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, all right.
We should definitely do that.
Last show.
I'm down.
Yeah. Well, this is fun.
I'm scared, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, this
Don't be
is
scared, man. Stay the course.
got
Patriots
this.
are in control.
We got this.
Pisco, keep doing the hopium, the aggressive hopium and copium on Twitter, man. It's fun.
Yes,
It's
I'll do that. I'll
infectious.
do that.
Fucking Econo Boy, I think he finally broke and like tweeted something yesterday or earlier today that was vaguely negative or vaguely anxious. Cut that shit out, okay?
No
There's
more
only room
anxiety.
for one cynic here, okay? I need the three of you and your optimism to balance out my Stuart Little pessimism. So,
can we get Jessica Tarlov on this next Live and Learn?
God, I love her. I love her so much.
You could probably get.
Do you love her, or are you in love with her?
Yes. No, I can't say that. I love my girlfriend, but I love Jessica. She's such a.
But you already said it,
bro. You have enough clout, man. I'm sure you could get.
I met her at the DNC. She is tall too. She's like 5'11". She is
nice.
She's a tall lady.
That's not that tall.
Shut up. To me, it is. Fuck you.
All for Josiah, you know.
Listen, to those of us who are under 6 feet, respectably so. Yeah,
Short.
She's great. You know who else I saw there? Fucking Brett Baer, and that guy just came off like a real dick.
Wow,
not
really?
surprised.
That seems so out of character for him.
How tall is Brett Baer, Josiah?
Well, he's still taller than me, but he was not. He was not like 6. He was not Hutch. He like my God, Hutch is like if we were filming a sitcom, Hutch's like clavicle would be off screen. He's like 6'3". He's like all the way up here.
It's the best height.
But no,
God
Brett
chose
Baer
me.
Brett Baer, now he is.
I didn't
Brett
earn
Baer is broad. Like he was a broad, muscly dude, or like, stout guy. But no, he was not particularly tall.
Barrel chested.
Very, very barrel chested and very barrel jawed, and also a dick. Can't stress that enough.
Can I just make a random suggestion for you guys?
Sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
The Penguin on Max, phenomenal. It's a really good show.
Oh, I'll watch it. Yeah.
If you guys are into like, I mean, I really like Peacemaker, but it's very different. It's like a mobster show. It's like an R-rated kind of mobster. It's like a little bit of Sopranos and a little bit of Batman, but it's real good, real good.
Okay,
I'll watch it.
I've seen the first episode, but I'm behind.
It picks up. It really picks up.
It's interesting. I'm not gonna listen. I'm gonna throw this out there. Obviously, there are very few people on par with Daniel Day-Lewis, but Colin Farrell is actually an incredible actor. He's just an incredible
Banshees of Inisherin. Watch that movie if you haven't seen it. He's brilliant in that movie.
Did you ever see him in Horrible Bosses?
Yeah, of course. He's fucking great, and he's so good as Penguin too. I mean, he's a really talented actor.
Yeah.
I didn't know that that was Colin Farrell when I saw the Batman. I didn't know that he was in the movie because they made him look quite different than he normally does. But I like his performance. Well, I'm glad to hear that show is good. DC, it seems like they can do good TV shows, but not good movies.
Well, no.
What's up with that?
I mean, James Gunn took over, and now there's a lot of promise. Like they just announced a Lantern show with Kyle Chandler. Kyle Chandler in the lead, and we're gonna get a trailer for Superman pretty soon. I'm really hopeful for that.
I mean, Peacemaker is like actually the best thing DC's ever made. Like I love that show. Yeah,
it's great. It's really, really, really great. Yeah.
You guys, I genuinely think this is an underrated masterpiece, but The Rise of Skywalker.
Fuck off, man. You don't actually believe that, right? This is like a bit with you, right?
Pisco. All right. You're a Star Wars geek. How do you feel about I like The Rise of Skywalker. It's not a great movie.
Saying this?
Listen, it's not a great movie, but people compare it to a dumpster fire. And I think that's an apropos metaphor because if you ignore the smell, it has a warm glow to it.
The dagger doesn't make any sense. Why do they have a dagger the exact shape of the Death Star outline? How is it
none of it makes any sense? Of course not.
Why do they have a fleet of Death Stars with fucking destroyer Death Star?
The wreckage would be further sinking into the ocean anyway. Of course, it doesn't make.
Why did they undo all that was like pretty good about the last
Jedi?
Yeah, why did they?
They should have called it Star Wars. I'm sorry for the Last Jedi. Fucking rabid.
I actually now in retrospect like the Last Jedi. And why is it Ray Palpatine? I hate that. I hate just the name Ray Palpatine.
Can I tell you why? Can I tell you why I like it? Let me tell you why.
You're kidding, right?
I feel like Star Wars fan. It reaffirmed that Palpatine really is the most important Star Wars character, without whom the saga without whom the saga could not be possible. Move over. It goes this. It's Palpatine, then Anakin, then Luke, and then everybody else. And I think that's
now it's Rey. Now it's Rey Palpatine.
Well, it's Rey with all the Jedi.
It's Rey Palpatine.
No, it's Rey Skywalker.
That's right.
Okay.
Rey Skywalker.
She said it. Last line.
Rey!
What? Listen. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to make an actual defense for this movie here, just real quick while I've got you here.
Just
Ian McDermott's performance, it's the best performance of Palpatine in any
No,
of them,
it's fucking not.
Yeah, well, no, 100%. I'm being totally unironic there. He is.
No, you have to say Revenge of the Sith or
no, fuck
Jedi.
Revenge of the Sith. Hang on. The
What?
first half, just give me a fucking second. The first half of Revenge of the Sith, 10 out of 10. When as soon as he fights Mace Windu, terrible. No, you like it's so bad.
It's amazing.
That
No,
was
it's
great.
amazing.
It's all
Amazing.
No,
Josiah's Star Wars opinions need to be disregarded.
Yeah, this is fucking
Is
stupid.
amazing, but as soon as he transforms, it's just pure pantomime. Not because McDermott is bad, but because Lucas is a terrible director.
blinds you, master.
There's some cool parts, but also, so let me get fucking through this, okay? So Ian McDermott's performance, chilling, creepy, eldritch horror. Number one. Number two, this is the only movie of the three where you have Rey, Poe, and Finn in.
Who cares?
They have chemistry. It's a great group. It's like a D&D adventure.
I can't even remember their names.
Oh my god! I'm gonna kill Josiah.
One fucking word. Okay, listen.
No, Ryan Johnson
Rey,
teasing. Listen, Ryan Johnson teasing up like the Rey. Fuck, what's his name? Darth. Fuck, what's his name?
Darth
What's his
Vader.
name?
Darth Sidious.
No, the other guy.
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren, yeah. Him like teasing them,
Darth
teaming
Ren.
up, and then subverting at the end of The Last Jedi was perfect. They should have left it there. And then J.J. Abrams lazily just went, no, never mind. Let's do a romance with him. It's fucking sick.
It was bad.
Here's the
It was
problem.
bad.
Here's the problem. The entire trilogy was set up for failure with the Rise of Sky or the Force Awakens. The Force Awakens is the worst.
I
of the
agree,
series,
actually.
in my opinion.
Wait, no. Sorry. I have to take it back. It's not the worst.
Fuck you. No. There is no back.
It's not the worst.
Clip it.
It's not the worst movie. It's still The Rise of Skywalker is the worst of the 9 films. But one of the worst parts about the sequels is the kind of nihilistic start that the 7th movie starts, which is Force Awakens. I'm just being honest with you. Your whole argument is like this entire series revolves around Poe Dameron, and that's why The Rise of Skywalker is the most important.
I didn't say Poe Dameron. I said Palpatine.
my bad.
Number one. Number two. Yeah. Number two. The Force Awakens set everything up for failure. So it was a cowardly, soft reboot. It didn't even try to world build. The First Order is the Empire.
So hard.
Kylo Ren and Snoke. What do you mean you disagree?
Episode 7 was the best of the sequel trilogy. It was the best one.
You lie.
Wait, can I just say something one of my chatters said? Remember at the end of Last Jedi where they're like, you're nobody. And the next movie they undo that. Remember that, Desire?
Yeah.
She should have been an Obama. You're an Obama, Ray.
Obama.
You're an Obama.
The Force Awakens undid everything that came before. It's like you defeated the Empire.
Well, no
but not
shit,
really.
Josiah.
defeated
You
the
can't
Sith,
just have
but
no
not really.
conflict in a film. Okay, you've got to do something.
No one said you couldn't have
Right?
conflict. No one said you couldn't have
Jesus
conflict.
Christ.
Why does it have to be the same shit? Why does it have to be more Star Destroyers, more TIE
I can't
fighters,
believe
more
you're like,
Stormtroopers, a
hold
bigger
on.
Death
The
Star,
Force Awakens.
a bigger Death
Okay,
Star.
at least The Force Awakens didn't introduce an entire planet filled with Sith sycophants that was completely unexplained.
Makes no sense.
And then, by the way, the main villain.
But
hold
the
on, shut
First
fuck up,
Order
Josiah.
makes
And then-
sense.
Shut up, Josiah.
And then, by the way, the villain of the first 2 films, it was actually the villain from the previous 3 films. Like,
So
it was
shit.
ridiculous.
Oh shit.
How on earth does Exegol make any meaningfully less sense?
I hate that
than
you know the name of that
First
fucking
Order?
planet.
Where did the first fucking order come from?
Well, no, that's such-
But
It's
here's the
just-
thing.
but
No,
the first-
Josiah,
the
at
first
least here's the
order-
thing. Hold on, Hutch. Here's the thing. At least it was introduced and developed over the course of 2 films. Fucking the last part.
Did you not
How
Did you
would-
not see that fucking? Okay, if there's
Planet
one really
MAGA.
if there's one really good thing about The Force Awakens, it's the fucking speech that Domhnall Gleeson gives. That fucking Hitler speech. That shit
That was
was
great.
raw.
Who cares about that speech? Hutch?
Raw. I was like,
It was
okay,
better
I
than the
buy it.
fucking
I buy it.
last
These guys are
thing.
evil.
It doesn't explain anything about the first. It doesn't explain anything about the First Order's genesis, how they
Josiah,
came into
I
being.
agree.
They are the Empire. They have bigger, badder star.
Bigger, badder. You sound like a fucking
bigger, badder,
lightsaber guy.
bigger,
Oh my
badder
God, they
Death
have so
Star,
many
a bigger,
lightsabers.
badder Emperor. It is the Empire, but bigger and badder. But it's also supposed to be like J.J. Abrams. I remember so vividly in the interviews pre-TFA. He's like, "What if the Nazis escaped to like Argentina?" Yeah, but then the Nazis in Argentina wouldn't be fielding shit that the Nazis at their prime couldn't possibly have. He undercut his own fucking premise. Luke, the Jedi Order is just destroyed again.
Josiah.
We have another scavenger on a desert planet again.
We have
It was
Palpatine
a cowardly
again.
soft reboot.
What?
If you want to see some,
Here's
if you
the
want to
thing.
see some really original shit in the new Star Wars,
Sure.
Andor is the best Star Wars property of any media. It's better than the original
Agreed.
trilogy.
Totally agreed
It's
on
better
that.
than the prequels. It's
Yeah.
better than all the
Agreed.
sequels. It is 10 out of
Agreed.
10, literal 10 out
is-
of 10 TV.
It truly is the only part of
Wait,
the
I need to
IP
end the
that's
show,
above
guys.
it.
It's killing me. It's killing my buzz.
You didn't like
I'm voting for Trump.
Wait, you didn't like Andor?
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it yet?
I haven't seen it either.
Fuck you.
Oh my
Pisco.
God.
That's fine. I expect. This is what I mean. Joe, if you're still here, this is what I meant when I say questionable taste. This motherfucker.
You don't address her. You don't get to say her name.
Wow. I didn't realize she was your chattel, Pisco.
Y'all need to watch Andor.
Can we end this show?
Y'all need to watch Andor.
Yes.
I'm serious. You need to. I want
Yeah.
you guys to watch at least one episode before next episode.
Okay.
Of, Live
Buddy,
and
I've seen it. I think it's amazing.
I just
do.
rewatched it.
We'll
I
have to-
will. I'll watch it.
He won't. He's
I
fucking lying.
promise.
That's all he does. I don't believe it.
All right, boys.
Guys, this was fun in all seriousness, and we'll look at doing something. Obviously, we've got it next Wednesday, and then we'll do something prior to the election. So keep the faith.
Hey, stay cool.
Prison Break. Prison Break. What season are you
We're-
on?
First.
That's good. That's good. See, that's the first two seasons are
Good pop.
amazing.
It's
in
good
Prison Break.
popcorn
Good
TV.
Fuck yeah.